second. It looks like we're good.
Hey, let's start the show.
It's March 27th, 2014. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com.
Right.
Look at that fucking squirrel on my bird feeder.
And then suddenly, the Enterprise D's bridge.
Hey guys, it's a momentous occasion in This Is Only a Test history today. To celebrate, we have, I think you were our first guest on the show, Gary.
Was I?
Yeah, Norm Chan, of course, is here.
I'm here.
Hi, Norm.
Hi.
Gary Whitta, making a triumphant return. Don't know how long or for what purpose, but you're here today.
Yeah, we established the
You
last
started a
time I was
podcast.
here was around the time of like the Xbox and PlayStation launch.
It was
like
when
November.
we gave thanks. I think it was the week before we gave thanks
Yeah,
for the bountiful harvest and sacrifice.
that's like 4 or 5 months.
It's been a while.
5 months.
It's been a season.
Yeah, I've kind of missed it.
But this today, right now,
Hibernation.
this episode right now. See, now right now what you're thinking is this is our 200th episode at home. That's you, right. You're thinking, oh, it's episode 200. Finally, they've done.
Last week was 199F.
199A, 199B, 199C, 199D, 199E, 199F, a dadcast. Gina and I recorded a podcast. We're going to call that one Mr. and Mrs. Smith, by the way.
I came up with
That's
that
good.
name.
I like that.
I
name,
came
Norm.
up
That's
with that
very
name.
good.
Super good name. This isn't our 200th episode.
It's not?
Nope.
Then why did I get the balloons?
You got the wrong balloons, Norm. You should have gotten the ones that said 250.
Wow.
I went back and looked at the feed upon prompting from a reader, and the thing that became immediately apparent is that with all the Oktobercasts and the CES episodes and the run-up to episode 100, which we did for a while too because we're bad at milestone episodes, this is actually today, this episode right here, is the 250th episode of This Is Only a Test that's in the podcast feed. So we're resetting.
Are we going to reboot?
We're fixing our fucked up numbering scheme right here, right now.
Right.
From now on, going forward, next week's episode is 251. Whether it's a Dadcast, whether it's a Mr. and Mrs. Smith, whether it's Oktobercast, anything that shows up in this feed is going to be This Is Only a Test number something last episode plus one.
So it'll be easier to keep track.
This is my solemn promise for you
There's a whole
going forward.
49 lost episodes.
They're not lost. They're there. They're in the feed. They're just numbered incorrectly. So we fixed the error. That's it.
So
Housekeeping done.
what was actually the 200th episode?
So this is a
Man,
momentous occasion.
That is a good question. I have no idea. I'd have to open iTunes, which I'm afraid to do while recording the podcast on
Pretty
my
forgettable.
computer.
It is momentous.
Yeah, I'm glad I was able to be here for such an auspicious number.
Yeah,
That's 250.
It's the quarter millennia.
I wonder how
mark.
many of those I've actually been on.
I think the majority. If I went
No,
through and
I
did
wouldn't
the
say
math,
the majority. I think a good chunk because
Well,
it was
look,
a period where I was
At
on
least
almost
half.
every week.
At least half.
there's 24 36 Oktobercasts, which you're in all but one of. I think.
I know that's kind of a cheat though.
They're in
Because
the
you're
feed.
taking one big podcast and breaking
new
it down
rules,
into-
man.
All right.
New rules. It's all in the feed.
All CES casts?
All the CES casts
the
except for the
Oh
last
yeah, I
year.
used to love those CES casts.
Yeah, remember when we used to get to go to Vegas and have fun
Sitting
instead
in
of
that
work?
suite at the Planet Hollywood was just so much fun. Let's
the-
do that again. Oh, so you know what you guys should do, and you should try to you can get some content out of it. I'm going to try to go.
Okay.
Is Classic Gaming Expo in Vegas is coming up? I think in August or September.
What kind of classic gaming?
Like old school, like all the way back to
Pinochle?
video gaming,
Oh, okay.
computer space.
I think it's called Pinochle too, isn't it?
all the way back to the classic arcade games. They have the classic arcade video game museum there. It's great.
Is this like CAX? No, that's California Extreme.
I used to go
It's
to
not all pinball.
CGE. I used to go to Classic Gaming Expo when it was here in San Jose.
That
And
sounds
then
like it would be much more convenient.
And then they moved it to Vegas.
Where is it in Vegas? Is it someplace nice or is it someplace skeezy? Like the Riviera?
It's usually in like just a big
Circus
ballroom
Circus?
somewhere in one of the bigger hotels on the
Okay.
strip.
And
But I'm going to
and-
try to go this year.
Like, is it you pay, you go in, you get all free play
You
on
walk
everything?
around, you can play video games, you can look at exhibits, there are panels
Are there drinks?
and seminars. Well, it's Vegas, yes.
Okay. That's interesting.
It's like going to CES 30 years ago.
And, there are also kind of vendors, selling classic systems and classic games and things like that.
Hold on. If we went to this, could we role play that we were there covering it for Nintendo Power in 1985?
I mean, you can do it, you
Do
can
whatever
do
you want.
whatever you want, Well.
That would be amazing.
I don't think they have any rules
You can
about
tell people
role
about the
play.
future of VR.
Yeah, I'm here from Nintendo Power. I just wanted to hear a little bit about your release plans for Galaga and Donkey Kong. Nintendo Power didn't exist then, I know, but anyway, okay, that's
Nintendo
fun.
Power, the first issue of Nintendo Power came out the same year that I first started in the video game business. That's how old I am.
This is the Super Mario Brothers 2 one with the claymation cover.
Yeah,
It's a
1988.
good cover.
Yeah.
It's a good cover.
And I thought it was nice that when they did the final issue of Nintendo Power, they recreated that cover.
Is that the work of Chris Imlay or was that somebody else?
I can't remember.
I think
It
he'd
was-
left by then.
But it was good. It was good work though
Yeah.
that they went back, to the beginning.
Put a nice bow on the
Came
whole
full
thing.
circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an emotional moment for many people when Nintendo Power ended because so many, of our generation grew up on that
It
magazine.
was the
I
first
grew up
games
on that
magazine
magazine.
I ever saw, yeah. Because you got it when you sent the card in with the NES, and
Now
you got
you're
Nintendo
playing
Power
with
back.
Power.
Yeah.
And it used to be back in the day, again before the internet, the only place you could go to get tips.
Just hacks.
Well, there was the
Some companies had like a 1-800 number you could call for
1-900
tips,
number.
where you had to pay, right?
Yeah. Ask your parents before calling.
Yeah. Or you could wait for the next Nintendo Power and hope that the game that you're playing would have there'd be some tips or a guide in there for
Did you ever call one of the 900 numbers?
No, but they had there was a nice video segment. If you search on YouTube, you can find it. When they announced those call-in numbers, some news segment, there was some maybe a primetime show thing, like a Inside Edition or something, visited one of the call centers. And
Okay.
they had the guy sitting at the cubicle, picking up the phone and then going through, and these experts telling you how to beat certain levels. And
Yeah.
load up the cartridge and tell you how to beat Zelda.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's kind of cool, but of course these days you don't need it anymore.
I called one of the 900 numbers once. I like went and asked my mom for permission when I
Oh,
was
really?
How much a
9
minute?
years old, 10 years old. It's like 99 cents a minute.
Do you remember the game that you were stuck on?
Yes, I do. It was Wizards and Warriors for the NES.
Okay.
Which, if you remember, was like a side-scrolling kind of platformer, hack and slash thing.
Yeah.
I think you could play multiple players, and I had a friend over, and we got all the way to the end of the game and just couldn't figure out how to beat the final boss.
Wow.
For hours.
Did
And so
they-
finally she was like, you guys have to go out and play. And we're like, we can't. If we turn off the game, we lose like 14
Yeah.
hours
Couldn't
of
save your
work at
game
this
back
point. You
then.
couldn't save your game. And I said, and it was a rental too. So I was like, and if we take it back, like if we don't figure this out, we're just gonna have to keep it.
Yeah.
So it'll cost $4. But if we do the phone call and we're fast, it'll cost 99 cents.
It's never fast.
And it was not fast.
Was it a person that you talked to, or was it like
There was a human being on the
Okay.
other end. You said, hey, what? He said, hey, what's going on? Where are you? And you said, we're at the boss. I can't figure out how to beat it. And he knew why you were calling because that's the only time anybody ever would have called in that game because it was not a hard
So
game.
did they
Right.
connect you to the person after you told them the
Yeah,
game?
we're going to connect you to our
Oh, man,
boss
that's a good
specialist.
question.
Or did they connect you to a person and he just knew, or she knew
I
everything?
think that you had a 900 number in the back of the instruction manual for the game that they probably knew you were calling for that game.
What if it was what if you got the busy tone? What if like other kids across the country were also talking
Well-
to that person?
And here's the other thing. What if like you know that those call centers where they ran 900 numbers, it was probably like those guys and the sexy chat and all the other stuff. They're probably all working out of the same
No.
call center.
You don't,
There's
you
a
don't,
TV
you don't want to
show
get that
idea.
mixed up.
That's a TV
No,
show.
right.
idea.
You cross the wires there, and it's like, what are you looking
what are you
for? You're
wearing?
like, I want to know how to beat the
The
dragon.
I'm wearing my
80s
magic armor. Like, should I change that before I fight the boss?
Hey, man, all I want to know is how to beat the dragon, okay?
Yeah, I mean that could be
Wow.
taken
Is
as
the
a
dragon
euphemism
out?
on the other end. Yeah. Yeah. First of all, take your dragon,
Take your dragon out,
and then beat it.
Give it a little stroke, then beat it.
It's obviously these days it's so convenient just to be able to dial up any playthrough on YouTube or whatever. They're all pretty much everything is there.
Yeah.
Anytime I've got stuck on a game and I've gone to the internet to look for a tip or something, like they've never failed to find it.
Any idiot can play games
But it's
these
the
days.
idea of like actually calling up and speaking to a real person is kind of a bittersweet relic of a bygone
It was
age.
comforting.
You felt kind of
Yeah.
sad. I felt like I had failed.
Yeah, you
Guidance.
having to call the
Yeah.
900
having to
number.
admit to a human.
I
that
think
you
it's
can't play this
it's more
game.
sad that the games that play themselves now that you can where you can just play resume game and they'll solve the puzzle for you.
The interesting thing that's happened as a result of all the accessible information is you see games like Spelunky and Super Meat Boy that have incredibly steep but gradual difficulty curves so that you keep having to learn. Like, so the games, everything is available Like you can know how to beat a Super Meat Boy level just by looking at it, right?
Yeah.
It's just the execution is really hard. Or with Spelunky, there's an incredible depth of knowledge out there about the game, but you still have to execute. Executing is very difficult.
It definitely seems like both ends of the gaming difficulty spectrum have kind of opened up recently. Like there's been more and more games that kind of really hold your hand. Like Norm says, adaptive difficulty. You can always turn the difficulty down. Like in GTA, if you fail a mission 3 times, it will say, "Do you just want to skip it?" Because people
yes.
just want to, and I'll often say yes because you don't want to get GTA is the kind of game you can get really frustrated at. Especially on a mission where you get really
One
stuck.
bad gated mission in
Oh
GTA
my
has
God,
ruined
just the
every
worst.
single one of
you
those
just want
games
to move
for me.
on. Like the mission itself is not fun. You want
Leave
to
me alone.
I wish they would
part
make
of
you
the story.
call 1-900 number.
Oh, so you
then-
want microtransactions?
And then record your voice thing. I failed this mission, and then they would store that confession. And
But I feel like that's been mitigated by, like you said, there's a new.
we can offer that as a service.
I think there's also a new trend, a new popularity for games at the harder end of the spectrum, like Spelunky, as you say, like Super Meat Boy, particularly
A lot
Dark
of the indie
Souls is
stuff,
super
yeah.
popular right now. People love the fact that it's so difficult.
Well, it's and because of the neat way that Dark Souls 2 just came out, and we're gonna get yelled at. I can't believe we're talking about games shit and all this other stuff has happened. But okay, the thing about Dark Souls is that it's kind of an event, right? That game comes out, everybody's figuring it out at the same time, and you're sharing messages both in game and on message boards, and everybody's like sussing out. Like there's no critical path through that game yet. That game does not have a critical path, I'm sure.
I would not contradict you. I don't know.
Like it's
played it.
okay. So it's open world. You can go attack stuff in different orders, but even figuring out you rated in WoW at some point in your past.
Oh,
life,
yeah.
right. Okay, so
Back in the day.
when you meet a new WoW
Back when they still
encounter-
had 40-man raids.
Yeah.
We used to raid old school.
Well, I played
is it now?
EverQuest when we had
What's that?
70,
What is it
24,
now?
I think.
I think
is
it's
the cap.
at 25, I think. Something
Yeah.
like that. I haven't played in a long time.
So it's like an MMO. A new expansion comes out. Everybody is on even footing, and everybody has to figure out the boss encounters and the path through the new dungeons and all that stuff. And everybody goes about it a little bit different way. But that sense of exploration is something that's really hard to get in modern games because of GameFAQs and YouTube and all that stuff.
Right.
So anyway, episode 250,
yeah, game
guys.
facts.
Fucking
Don't-
GameFAQs.
How do you beat Spelunky? B12 years old.
I think
Be
it's
18
Spelunky's
years
all
old.
old dudes, but I could be wrong.
I usually look for the video walkthrough and I just go to the part. There was a part on Saints Row 4 where I got really, really stuck. And I felt embarrassed afterwards because it was
Really?
well, there was a particular boss that for some reason I just missed the trick on how to beat it. It was really simple and I just missed it. And for some reason it just wasn't clicking
Step
with
1,
me.
aim gun. Step 2, shoot.
Well, it was only vulnerable from the very back. I mean, it's such a simple thing. Like, his weak spot was basically on the back of its head.
Wait. Hold on, you're saying it was a video game boss and the weak spot was on the back?
It was on the back of its head. You had to
amazing.
you had to get behind it.
Yes.
But the rest of it was completely invulnerable. You could shoot at it all day and nothing would happen. It was
you
invulnerable
did.
apart from one weak spot.
Yeah.
And I should have spotted it. It was explained early on, but I missed the cue or whatever that comes up that tells you where it is. And I just got stuck. And I queued up a video and I was like, oh, you idiot, of course, there it is. And went and completed it.
I was really super disappointed in the ending of Saints Row 4. Because you get to the part where you meet Zinyak in the spaceship for the first time. He's like, well, Saints leader, if you sacrifice yourself, then I'll save all of humanity. I won't destroy your planet. So you sacrifice yourself, and then the fucking game's just over.
But but spoiler alert, in Saints Row 4, Earth
Yeah.
gets destroyed fairly early on.
Yeah, it's like a
So
short game.
there's no saving the planet.
You
no- and they-
he presents you
you
with a
wait-
choice. He's like, press A to fight me and stand up against me, and press B to sacrifice yourself, and I'll save your people.
Could have been a commentary.
I pressed B, and then the game was over.
I enjoyed that game so much. Well, I don't know if there are different endings. I got the ending where it's like saints go back in time,
Yep.
Oh,
and then they're posting selfies from like ancient Egypt and stuff like that.
That
stuff
sounds
like that.
pretty good.
Sounds like you didn't finish a game properly.
I might
You might
have. I
have
might
to go
have.
back.
Maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe I
Well,
should have
that was
pressed
the
A
game.
instead of B.
That
That
game
was
was
the
so
game.
fun that I didn't even care that the ending was slightly underwhelming. Because you're right, for me it was as well. But I had so much fun I didn't care.
I just like jumping over buildings.
Oh, it's the best.
Duke Nukem game I always wanted.
There's been some kind of big news this week, guys.
How's your GDC,
Oh, yeah.
Gary?
I enjoyed my GDC, even though I didn't get to go to very much of it. I was kind of just on the periphery. I didn't go onto the expo floor or anything.
Do you have any high points?
Yeah, a couple.
We're going to let the big news stew. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to wait until after to talk about
Well,
this.
that sets it up.
Okay.
Things that we saw at GDC.
So a couple of things. So Adam Sessler, who used to be on X Play, now
Address
does
assess. Yeah.
Revision 3. asked me to come and do like a podcast with him from the GDC show floor.
Wow.
And I didn't even know what it was, but like it's not difficult to get me to show up for something.
Really?
Got nothing better to do. No, so listen, here's the thing. The reason why I have just to address this, the reason why I haven't been on the podcast in a long time is I've been really, really busy as I'm trying to finish up a bunch of projects.
Yeah.
And I've got a new bunch of projects that are going to be starting soon that will probably keep me away again. But for right now, I've got this little window where I can actually like get out and do things. So I'm glad to be able to be here during that window. Maybe I'll be here next week as well. Who knows? But for now, I'm able to get out and do a few things. So I was able to go to GDC. And Cessna had me come. It turned out this thing was about like game narratives, like telling storytelling inside video games.
You have some expertise
right?
there.
So that's a favorite subject of mine. That's something I like to talk about. But what was cool was I like Adam and I like Tara, who is like his co-host on the show. But they also had Joseph Fares, who was the director of Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons.
Oh, that game's great.
Which was one of my favorite games of last year.
It was amazing.
So this is the thing. The highlight for me was I actually got to meet two of my most admired people in games right now, like who I think are two of the best.
Who was this other one?
So Joseph Fares
Okay.
and Neil Druckmann, who wrote The Last of Us.
Oh, wow.
I think those two games were like the biggest achievements in storytelling in very different ways. One kind of a traditional approach
Yeah.
and one a very innovative new approach in Brothers. But I got to talk to both of them about, how they do what they do.
And you finished Last of Us. Right?
What's that?
Did you finish Last of
No,
Us?
in fact, I had to tell Neil. I was kind of
Oh,
embarrassed
no.
to tell him, like, don't, in this conversation, just be aware. I have a 2-year-old daughter, and therefore I have a pile of games that are taller than my daughter that I haven't been able to finish. And The Last of Us is
I
one.
hope you're going
Wow.
to finish it.
Of course, I'm absolutely good. It's the top of my pile. I've got to get back and finish it.
It's hard to have a conversation about storytelling in Last of Us without knowing the
ending.
Yeah, so we should just move on quickly.
Yeah.
But the point was I got to meet those two guys whose work I admire very much. That was a highlight for me.
That's good.
My other highlight, or that kind of came as like an appendix to GDC, was finally getting to play IDARB, which was a lot of people's game of the show.
So
what was it? What is IDARB?
Yeah, I don't know what I've heard a lot of people talking about IDARB in incredibly positive ways, and this is a former colleague of ours, right? He was a
So
future
Mike,
guy, right?
so Mike Micah, who's an old work colleague and a friend of ours. Mike used to work back at Imagine Media with us back in the days of kind of Next Generation and PC Gamer when we were all working on those magazines. And then he went off into development and has worked for a number of different companies and has had his hands in like so many different video games over the years.
He's, as I understand it, his business has a lot of times been a lot like kind of Dave Lang.
You should
where
have
they
him
do
on
contract
sometime
stuff.
as
We
a
should.
guest. He'd be a fascinating
He's a good guy
guest.
to talk to.
He's one of the most knowledgeable guys about like the history of the video game business and classic video games. Like he does a thing every year at PAX, like a video game antique roadshow, where you can bring him your, I've got this old cartridge or this old thing, and he'll tell you what it's worth.
Not only
as a
appraise it, will he
collector's
tell
item.
the story behind it?
Yeah, he'll even tell you. Yeah.
He's frequently the smartest guy in the room.
He's got a very large video game collection. He knows all of this stuff, and he's also, like I said, a programmer,
And
game designer.
Why isn't there
made
a
bunch
TV
of games.
show
Also-
like Comic Book Men where they do that with comics, or Pawn Stars but with video games?
I don't think there's enough of a market for the games.
There's so many games.
He's
Some good stories.
He's also the guy who his 4-year-old daughter, asked why the hero in Donkey Kong was a boy, and he pixel swapped Pauline and Mario in Donkey Kong.
Yeah,
He was on National
so
News
Mike
for that a few years
became
ago.
famous, internet famous for 15 minutes last year when he became known as the
Wow.
Donkey Kong Dad.
I wasn't going to say 15 minutes, but
Well, it was a bit longer than 50, but he was actually like, it was a big deal for a while there where, his daughter came to him and said, why don't I get to play as Pauline and try to rescue Mario? And he was like, that's a good question. So he went in and hacked the ROM to flip the character so you could, and it actually wasn't
That
an
is
easy thing to do.
literally exactly what I just said.
But the point I'm making is this is what the new, this is what dads don't build tree houses for their kids anymore.
No.
This is what we can do now. We can hack ROMs for them. And
So
do
have you
things
hacked
like that.
ROMs for your daughter?
But dads, people like Micah can.
Oh, okay,
I can't
okay.
do shit.
Okay.
But this is the new nature of daddom, I guess.
So what's IDARB?
Okay, so IDARB.
Because you played it now.
Yes.
I didn't play
was
I
so-
didn't see him on the floor when he had it.
Mike had been tweeting about IDARB for a while, and Mike does a lot of kind of silly, just for fun, just on a lark type projects, and I never know like what's going to be real or what's not.
He has a good sense of whimsy.
He throws a lot of stuff at the wall
Yeah.
just to see what'll stick, and he started playing around with a game called IDARB, which he was having the community help design, and it started with just drawing a red box on the screen. IDARB stands for It Draws a Red Box. And so that was all it was. It was initially just a red box on a screen, and he started inviting the community via social media to suggest ideas to start building out this game. So they start putting platforms into it, and characters can kind of jump around the platforms. And then someone said, add a ball and like make it a sport where you have to like throw a ball into a goal. And so the game design starts evolving, and they got it to a point where it was a functioning game. And they through the new Idea Xbox program, which is like their indie self-publishing program, where you can basically throw anything up onto the Xbox platform, which is going to be going live, I think, later this year. Created this game, and they showed it at GDC, and the next thing you know, every other tweet that I'm seeing is, "Oh my god, you got to go over and see this thing, iDarb. It's the best thing at the show."
Yeah, Micah
and I was like,
retweeted
"Oh,
a bunch of
this
people.
can't be the same iDarb that Micah was like messing around with." Like, but it actually turned out that it was.
So what is the actual game?
Okay,
in its
so
current
it's a
state?
single screen. The screen scrolls around a little bit, but it's a single level. It looks very much like an old-fashioned like 8-bit retro arcade game.
Okay.
It kind of looks a bit like Joust. There's a bunch of platforms at different levels, and you can run around and jump on the platforms.
Can you warp from side to side?
No.
Okay.
But there's also a ball and 2 goals, and you can have anything from 1-on-1 to 4-on-4. You can have 7-on-1, 6-on-2. You can there's the maximum of 8 players, and you can split them in any way you want. Even teams, uneven teams, anything you want. And the ball bounces around, and you have to catch the ball and throw it into the goal, and that's it. So it's kind of a combination between
it's like soccer.
It's like a bit of a combination between like an old-fashioned basketball and a soccer game, and like a Joust type platformer. And it's one of those things where, like, I could explain it to you all day and you still wouldn't get it, but if you play it for like 2 minutes, you'll instantly get it.
I totally get it. It's like Norman and I played Hokra
Hokra.
years ago at E3, and it's the same kind of thing. It's like a super simple, mechanically simple game that is very fun to play in a
It's one of those things.
environment.
The reason why I think it's going to be successful is because it's one of those games that, like, the casual level, you can totally imagine like all the family. Like you said, 8 controllers. Can all sit around and like kind of throw elbows and kind of shout at the TV and stuff and have fun with it. But I think it's also the sort of game that once you really get the hang of it and all the tricks and the deflections and the volleys and the physics and all the stuff where the ball behaves, you could get like I think it could be like an esports kind of game.
It sounds
you
kind of
could
like
get really,
Windjammers.
really good at it. What's that?
It sounds kind of like Windjammers.
I haven't played Windjammers.
Windjammers is the frisbee volleyball game.
I think
for
it
the
might
Neo
be a little
Geo.
bit like that.
Like, I mean, that has graphics and stuff, so this is a little more.
This is really deliberately retro,
Right.
old school. So one of the other cool things they've created is a character creator, because all the characters are. This is so like Jeremy's Game Frame. It's almost like that. You can create
avatars.
You
yeah.
can go to idarb.com right now, and they have a pixel grid and a color palette, and you can create any like old school 8-bit sprite you want to create,
And
one pixel at a time.
import that in as your avatar.
And then once you're done, it will it'll generate a QR code that Kinect will read, and it will put that character right into the game. So people have been creating everything. They've got like Iron Man, Super Mario, anything you can create as an 8-bit
great.
piece of pixel art, you can create. So you've got, you can have like really fun teams. You could take like the True Detective characters, do 8-bit pixel versions of them, and have them be your duo in the game.
Yeah, 2 versus the serial killers.
Yeah, have the Yellow King on the other side.
you
whatever
do
you
our
want.
blockheads.
So it's not out yet. I think it's going to launch as part of the Idea Xbox program, like I said, which is their kind of indie self-publishing program, which they're working up now. But it's one of those things that like caught on at you know how like every show you go, like whether it be PAX, like everyone says, oh, the game of the show is not the big thing over there. It's like you got to go all the way in the back, and there's a guy over there with a laptop.
Yeah.
You got to go see that game.
Well,
and
this-
that was iDarb this year.
This kind of couch competitive game, follows on from Towerfall and Samurai Gun and Nidhogg and all those kinds of games that are. I mean, honestly, that's the thing that I missed about the last generation more than anything else is that all of the games that had previously been games I played on the couch, with the exception of fighting games, which are still kind of couch competitive, like Need for Speed stopped being a game that you could play split screen, right? Because they didn't have 2-player couch mode anymore. And I know nobody played it, but I played it, and not being able to play those kinds of games with my wife was a bummer.
You want a game that loads up quickly that you can just play your 15 minutes and leave.
local play has not been.
Local play got
Went through a
lost
period
on the last
because
generation.
online just basically took over.
Yeah.
But I think it's coming back now.
I mean, I assume, I hope so. And just to be clear, nobody wants Criterion to scale down Need for Speed so that it doesn't look awesome.
Yeah.
But I like being able to play 2 players on the same.
And listen,
couch.
I think it's great that both Sony and Microsoft have got these trying to develop these really, really open, welcoming indie platforms for developers. It used to be, the PC guys used to make the argument, oh well, the only place you can play like really interesting indie, different kind of games that aren't part of like the big console corporate machine, you've got to go to the PC. That's becoming less and less true because either stuff's getting ported over, like you can play Gone Home and Fairs on your PlayStation now, or stuff like iDarb, which is actually being now generated right for the Xbox to begin with.
I mean, just to be clear, Microsoft has had a history of supporting indie stuff early on. Small games. The Xbox Live Arcade initiative for the first 2 years was one of the
Yes, but even that had to go through quite a strict cert process, whereas the
That's true.
ID just lets you throw anything up there.
Well, so Microsoft had that initiative as well, and it was a pretty colossal failure because they buried it in the menus. So
Some good stuff came out of
hopefully-
it. Arcade Craft was one of my favorite 360 games.
Yeah, there
that
were
came
a
out through that.
bunch of Minecraft clones that came out of
Yeah.
that too, and
And
some weird sex
Sony
games
saw that and rightly said,
Yeah.
"Well, we need to get on that."
Yeah.
And so now they've become a very inviting platform for indie developers as well.
I don't think we should talk about this on the show, but it's just as food for thought. There was a really interesting conversation. Oh God, the guy's name is Querio on Twitter, or AIOU on Twitter. Greg Walwand had posted something about GDC being a colossal shit show because the platforms are kind of changing. So his post. So he's an artist and worked on Threes and I think Ridiculous Fishing and some other stuff.
I like those games.
His point was, look, Steam is saying they want to move away from being a curated store and they want to move to be a more open platform, all of the App Store, that then they still curate in some important way, but that for the most part, right now, if you want to put your game, if you make a game and you want to put it on Steam, you have to go through Valve. If you make an app for iOS and want to put it on the App Store, you just have to get a license from Valve and post it and has to clear their certification, but they're not making a value judgment about you can put a shit product on the App Store as long as it follows their rules. Steam, theoretically at least, doesn't release, there's a certain quality bar to get past Valve's curators, gatekeepers, whatever, for the Steam store. And
some terrible games still get through there.
a lot of terrible games still get through there. Valve has publicly said, or at least at Steam Dev Days, and it became rumored or leaked as a result, that the Greenlight process as it is now. So Greenlight is Valve's try at making that process a little bit more democratic and open, so that you submit your game idea, prototype, whatever, people vote on it. Once votes reach a certain level, a certain threshold, then the games get pulled into the store. And it works reasonably well, but the community that's formed around it is generally considered to be horrible, and kind of not inclusive of smaller indie things like Papers, Please or Depression Quest or whatever. The upshot of all this is that he is upset that Steam is going away as a curated store and looks at the App Store as a complete shit show. Whereas other developers like Zach Gage, who made Guts of Glory and a bunch of other stuff, looks at it, Bit Pilot and some other great indie games, looks at it as, hey, look, more people coming onto this platform where people are making good things is going to be good. The challenge for us then is figuring out how to get the word out about our titles and yada yada. It's interesting. It was an interesting conversation. I don't know why I started on this path, but
I don't know. Why we just talking about IDOB?
Yeah. IDOB.
But you should have Micah on the show.
We'll get Mike on either to go do a video with him or get him on the podcast.
Well, I mean, you got to go see his collection.
We've yes.
His cave. His
I was contacted. I don't think this is a secret or anything. I was contacted recently by the guys.
Hope it's not a secret.
I don't think. Well, it's not. It's about to not be. So let's hope not. I don't think it is.
Truth bomb.
The guys that are doing the documentary for Xbox about about the ET cartridges.
ET
They got
cartridge,
the famous story
yeah.
about them getting buried out in the desert. They're doing a big documentary about that right now.
and this is being produced by Xbox.
This was on
Xbox
the-
Entertainment Studios are going to bankroll it, and it's going to be a piece of content that will be delivered on their new platform, along with like
It was
the
on
Halo
The Verge on
TV
December
show and all the
19th.
other stuff.
It's not a secret.
Okay, so
I'm disappointed.
but I don't know if it's a secret that I was doing something. I don't know. Anyway, they said, "Do you want to be interviewed for it?" I said, "Sure." So and they said, "Who else do you know that like can speak to classic video games?" I said, "Oh, you got to go talk to Micah, and you should go to his house because he has the most amazing basement collection of like video games you've ever seen." And they went over there and they instantly they ended up, I think, doing a whole segment just on his basement because
So
it's this
he and-
ridiculous collection of video games.
He and our friend Steve Lynn,
Yeah.
friend of the site, have comparable collections. And Steve doesn't have, because Steve doesn't live in San Francisco, but he has storage facilities in San Francisco, and I got to visit one of those.
Yeah,
a
he
couple
actually
months ago.
contributed some stuff to the Nintendo Museum at GDC this year.
Yeah, and and same thing with CAX. I mean, a bunch of his arcade machines. But
Yeah.
I mean, you go into like these U-Haul facilities, like a nondescript facility, and they're long-term storage facilities. Some of them are air conditioned, some are not. And you pull up the door, and it is a museum.
I was like, Storage Wars.
It is amazing. Like when Steve opened his one of his
It's
storage
the
units,
best episode of Storage Wars ever.
you had the Nintendo robot right there.
Right.
Rob?
Rob, the robot, right,
Wow.
reading you, basically.
Wow.
Oh, so that was my other highlight of GDC. I went on the game show that they had there at GDC this year.
The IM8-bit one?
Yeah, the IM8-bit
I wanted to
did a fake game show with a
Yeah.
host and a set and everything.
We saw you.
I won my game.
You beat Chris Kohler.
I know. I beat Tom Russo
Oh, pff.
and a third contestant who I didn't know.
Just somebody
just a guy
somebody
who
off the
picked up.
street. Okay.
But yeah, it was actually much tougher than I was like, yeah, I know video games, but I think they knew that most of the people coming out there, it being GDC, were going to be people that knew video games, and so the questions were like, there were no easy questions.
No, I can
They
not
were
Were
really
they,
tough.
was it the same people who did the 80s yearbook photo?
Yes.
Yes.
They do like an installation, like a stunt there every year.
That's great.
And last year it was the 80s yearbook photos, and this year it was the fake game show.
Wow.
It was fun.
So other stuff we saw at GDC. Did you get to see Morpheus, the
No.
Sony goggles?
No,
Yeah, you should have. It was pretty good.
I like I said, I was barely there.
It was very comfortable.
So let's talk about that. So you got to wear the Morpheus goggles
Yeah.
and try them
we
out.
talked about it some last week, so we won't get into too much.
And this is Sony's VR solution. This is their answer to the Oculus Rift.
Yeah, so apparently they had multiple teams. The thing that Norm saw at CES and the which was the old HMZ T1, basically head-mounted display, but no optics to make it look huge, to make it fill your field of
Is
vision.
that the thing that I tried on way back?
You tried on that, but they
I
added
hated
motion
that.
tracking to it.
Yeah.
And so you ended up looking like you're looking through a window.
Yeah, it just wasn't-
like this.
Yeah, it was terrible.
When you were moving your head around, it wasn't good. Another team based in the U.S. down it seemed like in L.A. Developed this prototype, and it was a really good experience. Like it was shockingly good.
How did it compare to the Crystal Cove Rift, to the more HD version?
The ergonomics, or we've talked about this, but the
Yeah.
ergonomics we thought were better because the way it fits in your head is more like a visor. You know how when you wear like
Right.
a baseball
It's,
visor?
well, there's a ring that goes around your
Like-
head
like a
like at a
visor.
45-degree angle.
So
Okay.
it sits on top of your forehead, and then the goggles flip down or
Right.
get close to your eye, as
Right.
opposed to being strapped like ski
Strapped on
goggles.
like
Yeah.
seagulls. Yeah.
And
So
so, you have no pressure on the side of your
That's
head.
nice.
So and it's articulated, so it comes down and then you kind of squinch it in. So even when I was wearing glasses, I was able to wear glasses with them comfortably, which you can't do really with the Oculus.
Do you? But what was the experience like? The VR
So right,
experience.
so
Pretty good.
in terms of the sense of presence, which Sony is all about now, the panel they're using is a 1080p LCD, and Oculus had a prototype with 1080p using an LCD screen last year at E3.
Yeah.
And the Crystal Cove actually uses an AMOLED screen. So the big difference is the different panel types. Looking at the Sony LCD, there was a little bit more of a blur, motion blur. The persistent vision stuff wasn't there.
But the motion tracking was good.
Motion tracking was very good.
This stuff.
Because they also use their Move camera,
Right.
or the what's it called,
PlayStation camera.
PlayStation Eye.
No, that was the
PlayStation
last
camera.
Yeah.
So it can track your translation movement. There's 360 tracking, so there are IR lights around.
They
the
aren't
back.
IR. They're just lights.
And they may have finally found a way to resurrect the Move controller, right? Because this is an application that would actually
can
go well with
also-
the VR.
Yeah, you can.
But you can also use a DualShock 4
Right.
because it has the light and the accelerometer and gyroscopes as well. So it's
Right.
like everything works. And when you moved the DualShock, then your arms in the game moved.
Okay.
Yeah.
and the demo they showed was a underwater diving demo. So
Yeah.
you were in a shark cage, being lowered underwater. So you didn't have a lot of options to move. But if you bent your knees in the real world, your
Yeah.
avatar in the game would bend their knees.
Yeah.
Only knees bending. You couldn't lift your foot up or anything.
It seems like it was based on head position, not actual skeletal tracking or anything like that.
And then you could look around, move your head around, and also had audio. I guess they put headphones on.
You put headphones on.
Sony headphones on, but it was a really nicely developed demo.
It was
Well-
it was nice to see a high quality, like a well produced tech demo
but to
for this.
answer your question about how compared with the Oculus, the development kit 2 that we tried and the Crystal Cove demo we tried at CES, we thought was better in terms of
Okay.
the image quality.
Well, I like that Sony's getting into this space, because I think it's just going to help the overall, the more major players that get involved in VR, I think the more it's going to, take it out of the, even when Oculus was first starting, it was like, well, this is great technology, but like, who knows if it's, this thing needs major backers to really make an impact. And now we've got some.
we also tried the treadmill, the Omni treadmill.
Oh, yeah. I saw that on Shark Tank. I didn't know that was a thing they actually tried to get backers for on Shark
They
Tank.
kickstarted it ages ago.
Yeah.
Shark
for
Tank
Shark
seems
Tank.
like the exact right place for that.
No,
Yeah.
they got turned down. Nobody liked it.
Probably that was the right response.
This is the thing where you walk like basically
It's
on
a
a
disc.
big saucer,
Yeah.
and you have a ring like at the waist height around you, right?
So
And you strap on a crotch gripping harness.
Yeah,
the harness is
who's going to put that in their house?
here's the problem with it is that it comes off as really half baked now. Like when you think of VR prior to the Oculus Rift, you think of things that are half baked and kind of crappy.
Yeah.
And this fits right into that category. Now I think after using it, because we'd seen it a bunch and hadn't actually used it until last week, I really feel like there's probably potential for something that could be good there. Something that maybe you wouldn't put in your house, but that you would have in a, in your like if you like we live in the Bay Area, so we don't have a rec room, but it's a perfect kind of thing to put in the rec room. It's like a pinball table. You put it down there. It's something you bust out occasionally.
And they've designed it so that you can collapse and slide it under beds and stuff.
Yeah. I like
If you want to store it.
The problem is the experience as it is, as we got it, wasn't worth anything approaching the price of entry or the hassle.
Right.
If they last long enough to make it better, then that's great.
And honestly, I feel like, the experience of being in VR just from a good set of goggles is such a huge step forward. I don't know if we even need to be like layering on all these extra levels of immersion right away.
So-
Just sitting there with your controller on a couch is pretty great.
And an Oculus is designed for sitting experience. So
Yeah.
we actually we didn't have our video for this last week on YouTube. So a bunch of people I bet watching this won't have heard our opinions of this
Of the Oculus?
of the Oculus, and also of the demo we got. So we'll talk about Couch Nights, which you should be. It was the best thing we saw. I think best thing we saw
Okay.
at CES.
I think the shark demo was pretty good, but the
Couch Nights.
Had you put the Oculus headset on that shark demo, I think it would have been much more impressive.
Yeah.
So what's Couch Nights?
Well, okay. The treadmill thing, it's priced at $500, and I think that if they had doubled the R&D and made something good and charged $1,000 for it, it would be better proof of concept.
I don't know that spending more. I think it needs time.
With fewer people,
I think
early
time is the
adopters.
issue.
And
Like it's just not like it is every bit about it, that experience was rough. That's the problem with it. Like there was no when you put on the first Oculus demo when we put on the first Oculus demo at CES 2 years ago or at GDC 2 years last year or the year before. Anyway, when the first time I saw the Oculus headset, it was rough. Like the screen, you had a bad screen door. It was uncomfortable. Like it cut into your face in weird places. It wasn't a great experience, but you immediately saw the promise of it.
Right.
This, I can see the promise. It is way rougher than that was at that time. And we've seen a lot of early products all of us have seen a lot of early products over the years.
Yeah, and
you can tell.
This is Sony's first thing that they've shown. They'll go through more and more revisions.
Like-
Even the new dev kit that Oculus is going to start shipping out soon is not the final product.
So this is the difference. The Morpheus, you can look at it, you see where the issue where it needs work. You talk to them and they are aware of the places where it needs work. They had publicly. There's a rumor that they're not planning to ship anything for this holiday. I don't know if that's true or not. The treadmill thing is way rougher and has a lot further to go.
And the
than
basic concept
the Morpheus does
of the treadmill thing is capacitive sensor saucer that you're walking on, and the normal human gait isn't conducive to walking on that type of surface.
Right.
I mean, and just to be clear, like the capacitive saucer, they've been experimenting with different ways to track your feet the entire time this has been going. Because when I saw it at PAX, they were doing it with like 6-axis motion sensors or a Kinect, depending on which time of day you saw the demo. So like it's not like they're still figuring it out, and that's pretty apparent. So,
But like I
anyway.
said, I'm excited that they're in that space because I feel like there's
Yeah.
been a period where Oculus is, again, people have different experiences of it. I'm one of like the true believers in it. I was one of those guys when I first put it on at South by Southwest last year. I'm like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is the next thing. I was totally sold like almost immediately.
Well,
and I still feel that way. Having spent more time in it, I still believe it's going to be the next big thing.
And you haven't seen the high def version.
No, I haven't even seen that. I ordered the dev kit almost immediately after it went up, and hopefully I'll get that soon. But my worry was, and still, I still don't know. The worry has maybe turned into a worry of a different kind. I don't know, but like it was like this is a tiny company. They've got like some VC money, some Kickstarter money, but like we don't. Someone's going to have to step in, whether it be Sony or Apple or Google or Microsoft or Amazon. One of the major billion-dollar companies is going to have to step in and make this a big thing.
So
And that's happened.
And that's now happened.
that was a really nice segue.
Yeah, it was a
guys.
good segue.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Couch Nights later.
Yeah, I want to hear
Yeah.
about Couch Nights.
So yesterday it was announced that Facebook has purchased Oculus for $2 billion in basically about a quarter cash, and then the rest is stock and or performance-based incentives for the
300
Wasn't it like
Foundation.
400 million and then the rest in
It's like
stock?
480 million or something like that in cash, I think. Naturally, the reaction on the internet has been largely negative.
I think there are many different reasons for that.
I mean, at the core level, I think the internet doesn't try, and I'm using the internet as a collective, which is probably a mistake, but I think a lot of people on the internet don't trust acquisitions. Norm, you and I are aware of that. We've had that experience.
Sure, I think I think with this example specifically, I think addressing each of the. I think it's bad idea to generalize the criticism as one criticism.
Well, okay. I think that you can boil down the criticism in two parts. One is that they had said they weren't interested in being acquired before. In general ways, it left themselves out. People felt like being acquired as a result of their Kickstarter heritage was disingenuous and
I think those are
skeezy.
those are two- right.
People fucking hate Facebook.
And I think those are the three big criticisms. One, from the Kickstarter perspective, which we should talk about.
I think we should talk about all of them,
Yeah, we
actually.
should. So I think Kickstarter
I'm going to make
is
notes.
one. I think the second big criticism comes from the camp of people who want Oculus to not be acquired and to grow on its own.
True believers, we'll call
Sure.
them.
And then the third is the Facebook haters. And
So there were different stages to this, and the first immediate stage was like the WTF stage, right?
Yes.
Because as I said earlier, and so this is part of it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the people that feel like Oculus,
time
a lot
fun.
of I am ultimately optimistic about this, and I think it's probably in the end going to be a good thing.
I think,
And
just to be
and a
clear,
lot of the
I think we're all
people-
optimistic, right?
A lot,
Yes.
Norm?
a lot
I
of the
think-
people that are freaking out and posting pictures of them pretending to smash their Oculus with a hammer but not actually doing it, and all of these people and Notch and everyone else going, this is terrible. I get some of it, but I think it's way, way, way out of proportion.
So-
here's let me just finish my thought. Part of the problem is that I think a lot of people didn't understand, especially because it started on Kickstarter, the Oculus was always going to be this little hippy-dippy indie upstart venture. Anyone who understands anything about what this thing was and the level of scale that they ultimately wanted to achieve, it was never, ever going to be that. Someone like Apple or Amazon or Google was always going to come along and buy the company. The problem is no one thought it was going to be Facebook because it's the
don't
immediate
make
reaction is
hardware.
like it's the one that seems to make the least sense.
Well, okay, so here's the
thing.
When we first saw the Kickstarter, if you had you not seen the advancements they've made in the prototypes in the last 2 years, I could see, they're going to make a few maybe 100,000 VR headsets, and it'll be a weird niche thing that then dies on the vine 3 years later, right? To make a product like that, they could raise $50 or $100 million and probably crank something out.
Right.
It became very clear the first time we talked to them that they weren't interested in making something that was a weird niche product that became a footnote ultimately.
Right.
Like they very clearly look at virtual reality as a potentially revolutionary technology on the same scale as the internet and smartphones.
And most people who have actually tried it would agree.
And after using it, I kind of think that they're right.
Yeah.
And when you want to build products at that level and that scale, $100 million is chump change.
The first,
Sure.
the first time
I mean,
that I tried it, I think I was with Nate Mitchell, who's one of the principals
Yes.
at Oculus.
Nate.
This was at South by Southwest
Last
last year.
Yeah.
And my first question was after I tried, I said, "This thing is so great. Like, what is your business like?" I'd actually be kind of scared if I were there. It's like you've got. It's one of those things where you've got something. This could be a multi-billion-dollar product that could change the world, but you need to not screw it up, right? You've got to now make the right business plan for it. And the guy was like, "Oh yeah, we're looking at a bunch of different options." But I think if not from the very beginning, I think for a while now, you got to remember, like they've got $100 million of investor money in even before Facebook came along. They were like,
Right.
the way out of it, the way to make sure that this becomes a big thing is we sell it to a company that has the power and the muscle to make this. Like again, the number of people that are talking about Oculus Rift in the last 24 hours went up by like 100,000%.
And sorry, Norm, I'm going to, but I'll let you go after this.
Sure.
After like, it was immediately apparent that they were looking to sell to someone when they took $100 million of investor money. Like you don't
Or
take a
they're-
massive amount of money like that unless they're going to take like the next step from $100 million is $500 million.
And that's from the people who invested standpoint.
Right. I mean, if you're going to keep taking money, then they can't come back and take another $100 million. They have to take 500 or a billion.
Or they can go public.
Or they could go public, or they could be bought by Samsung or Sony or whoever makes the panels. But they're not like
quickest
the
return
out
is to be bought.
is Google, Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple. and maybe not Microsoft. So if you're looking at those 5 companies, who is going to buy Oculus? Microsoft has fucked up pretty much every acquisition they've ever made. Few big exceptions.
Sony could have been a contender. if
Sony
they
doesn't have any money.
but they would, and they also were developing their own
But
solution.
Sony can't afford $2 billion.
Sony's I believe Sony's a $20 billion company
Yes, but
as a whole.
But
Sony,
yeah,
not
if,
Sony computer.
yes,
Sony
if,
as a
if
whole.
you're looking at companies that can spend $2 billion without having to get massive shareholder buy-in
it's
and
like-
stuff like
it
that,
almost-
there's only 4 or 5.
And again, I think people are more shocked and are more angry because Facebook is a company that, rightly or wrongly, it's very easy to construct like a cynical narrative around Facebook, perhaps even more so than Apple and Google
Right.
and other companies that attract a lot of hate. But like this, again, this was always going to happen. Not just because it's the only business model that made sense and would ensure that this thing has a real good shot at success. Like, I think it was Brendan from Oculus the other day who said, yesterday, who said this, like, we always had 2 business plans for this, like, well, 2 eventualities. One was the likely outcome, and one was the one that like we didn't think was possible. And now the one that we didn't think was possible is the likely
possible
outcome.
one,
Right?
yeah.
So, and because that's
so
what a
Norm,
major company
I'm going to
can
give
bring.
the devil's advocate argument for all of the points. First, from the financial perspective, if they took $100 million in investment from the many VCs' perspective, they want a return, and they're going to make about a 20x return on the Facebook buyout. Some reports say that these VCs, I believe Anderson Horowitz was one of them, was skeptical about the buyout because they wanted even potentially bigger
right,
return.
they saw that it is a bigger potential long term,
And
but were they
when-
going to bring the money to make that happen?
And the options from a financial perspective, when you have already 100 million in seed, is either to be bought out, which they were, or to go public, which means then shareholders.
Yeah.
But and I think from the outrage, the people who are outraged about this, from their perspective, they would rather have that happened because it would have been under a different umbrella, and you get different benefits. There are different benefits to each. There the technologies that
It
you
draws
get
their
and-
focus away from building the technology.
And-
If you have to push a company public like that, then it's a year of business
You
bullshit.
just hire people to do that.
You can't, because that means then they can't talk to people at trade shows. There's so many rules about that, and because they're now part of Facebook, who's already done that shit is done.
Sure.
The other point about why this acquisition was inevitable is that you've got these companies out there like Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, who are constantly on the lookout for like snappy little upstarts who've got great technology that they can hoover up and invest in the future.
Right.
And Oculus was perhaps the prime example of that right now. It's an incredible piece of technology. You put it on, you go, okay, I get why this is the future. $2 billion. I actually thought $2 billion is a bargain.
I mean,
I think it's-
Instagram was a bargain
yeah.
at $1 billion. You're talking about WhatsApp at 18 billion or
Yep.
16 billion.
Yep.
So here's the thing about like, if you look at the other companies that are in the market for something like Oculus, Apple buys stuff, absorbs it, and then you never see it again in its original form until it pops up 5 years later. Like, what was the music startup that they bought that now is iTunes Radio?
I don't remember. Siri was
Right,
bought
Siri
in.
was an acquisition, but all of that stuff ends up being purchased, absorbed, completely
Technology's
rechanged,
absorbed.
Right.
to be Apple-y, and then comes out as. So if Apple had bought Oculus, we would never see Oculus games. We would see Apple's VR 5 or 10 years from now.
Right.
Had Google is super fickle. Sometimes they buy stuff and it goes great. That doesn't happen that often. Sometimes
Yeah,
they
and
buy
they-
stuff
and
and,
they
run it
walk
for
away
3
from stuff
years,
they bought all the
and then they
time.
walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just shut it down. So Google, if you're Palmer Luckey and you spent the last 10 years on something, you don't want to end up with that eventuality. That's bad for you.
Right.
Amazon's not going to buy consumer tech that's that kooky because VR is still for crazy people.
And they're not in the ad sales business. They're
Yeah.
not getting eyeballs. Literally,
I
eyeballs
wouldn't
business.
have been any more surprised by Amazon than Facebook. I mean, again, Facebook's kind of if you'd looked at the list 2 days ago, you'd have said Facebook. But Facebook.
Before WhatsApp.
Facebook is the closest to Google in terms of what they do.
But
They
Yeah.
sell
but
ads
here's what's
and they
happening. I
care
think
about
I
eyeballs.
think this is Facebook trying to
more
diversify,
googly.
become a Google.
Yeah.
Where they,
I-
this is why I was so disappointed by some of the reaction yesterday. Is that so many people, with an utter lack of imagination, just look at Oculus and Facebook and go, why would I want to browse Facebook in my Oculus
Farmville
goggles?
VR.
These are all hilarious jokes, but that's not what this is going to be.
If you-
And
Imagine
that's
if
what
Zynga had
if that's what you
bought
think
Oculus.
this is,
well, then I'd have a completely different story to tell.
I bet
Zynga doesn't have that much money anymore.
if Zynga, and this is a sidetrack, if Zynga's investors, I think they could have just absorbed Oculus and made Oculus the company,
the new-
and dump everything, but use that money, and that would have been a viable
Farmville
option.
VR. So So yeah, like I'm optimistic about Facebook. If you look at their first big purchase with Instagram, which was now almost 2 years ago. I think it's 2 years ago, like next month.
Yeah.
They haven't fucked up Instagram. I mean,
No,
I'm the only one.
Instagram's the
You're the
same
only one that
service.
uses Instagram, right?
I use it.
Oh, you do.
We use Instagram.
Like it's not. They haven't changed it.
No, you would
in
no,
any
you would never know that
appreciable
Facebook
manner.
had bought it.
They've added some stuff that maybe wouldn't have been there otherwise, like the short videos. It seems like nobody cares
And
about.
Twitter has done some stuff with
Right.
it. Yeah.
They turned off Twitter, but I think Twitter turned stuff off because of. I think that was Twitter and not necessarily Instagram. The upshot, though, is that service, they bought that because it was a good thing that had lots of users and engagement.
Right.
And then they left it alone and let it keep doing its thing. The letter that Zuckerberg posted on his Facebook page about the Oculus acquisition, like when something like this happens, you can do one of two things, right? You can either take the things that the people are saying at face value, because everyone involved, it's in their best interest to see something, to see this go well. Palmer Luckey isn't going to get rid of his company if he feels like they're going to part it out and turn it into something terrible.
Right.
Even for $2 billion. We've talked to him. He's a dude who is clearly, he believes in this as a thing, not as a way to make a quick buck. Zuckerberg's letter was the most pie in the sky, hey, I believe the metaverse is real and I want to make it happen, screed I've ever seen from a major tech CEO. Like he basically came out in this letter and said, look, I think that this VR shit is the future. We're going to spend a lot of money. We're going to make it happen. We're going to leave Oculus alone. They're going to stay the course with the gaming stuff.
Yep.
They're going to release a consumer version. They're going to release DevKit 2. We're not going to change anything. They're a wholly owned subsidiary.
But down the road, they see broader applications for it.
What they are going to do is have Oculus build a product that is going to become, hopefully, theoretically, in their eyes, a genre that then they can continue to take advantage of. That they can. So once the gaming market has sent enough of the headsets out that it's worth them fucking with, they'll release a product called Facebook VR, whatever the fuck it's called,
Right.
or the metaverse, and then leverage their investment in hardware to build a platform for other stuff.
Right.
They're not going to make a closed Facebook VR goggle that is, you can only run Facebook
and
apps
and
and
a lot of
Farmville and shit
and a
on.
lot
That's
of the
idiotic.
rampant fear and knee-jerk reactions that were rolling around yesterday were based on just a lack of vision. People going, "Why would I want to look at Facebook in my goggles?" Well,
And
you wouldn't. That's why
it's
that's
fucking
not
stupid.
what this is going to be.
Right.
I think the
there's a
communi-
reason why Zuckerberg is a billionaire, and most of the people complaining about this on
All right,
Twitter
everybody
are not.
hates Facebook. Probably Zuckerberg hates Facebook at this point, right?
Well, Zuckerberg wants to do something besides Facebook.
Yeah, like every time if you look at the abandonment of Facebook by people by the people that are bitching about the Oculus thing on Twitter, and ironically Facebook, like that is a failure on Facebook's part that has to gall Zuckerberg. So whatever they do next, they're going to not over advertise and fuck up the way they did
No,
Facebook.
look, I mean, look, this you can say this about any company, and again, Facebook has kind of lent into it a bit more than most. But like the worry is, you take this thing that's cool, and it's just going to get commercialized and monetized, and targeted ads and privacy invasion, all the fears that Facebook have dealt with over the years. I understand why some of that is coming out with this. And again, people thought that Oculus was this scrappy little upstart. It was all, I can't stress enough, and so many people said this yesterday, it was always going to end this way. The only question was which mega billion-dollar company was going to buy them.
And whether it was going to make sense. I think the communication about the sale was maybe not handled the best. Zuck had a long Facebook post
that
which I
wasn't
think-
linked anywhere.
That wasn't linked anywhere. It was only on Facebook. It wasn't a part of the shareholder or the news press release.
You had to go find it.
And that Zuck post had the most insight as to what his vision and plan was for Oculus. I think Oculus CEO, his letter to the Oculus team about the acquisition, I think was pretty poorly written in terms of the benefits to Oculus. I mean, things he lists were like, oh, now Oculus has a rock-solid global payment solution. I mean, that is not... Yes. But
So here's the thing. He wrote, like, I understand how that happens because it's the kind of thing, like, he just did all the DevKit 2 orders. They had problems processing payments on that. That's front of mind as he's writing this letter. And like those dudes are not great
bigger
at communication.
picture. I think
no, I know.
It should have been bigger picture stuff as opposed to we now have better recruiters for talent.
The
right
reason-
now. Like that's unexciting.
I'm optimistic about it for the same reason that I'm optimistic about Sony getting involved. Is that, again, once you try the technology, you see the potential, you really, really want it to succeed, and for it to succeed on the level that we hope it will, you need really, really large companies with huge amounts of money need to back it. So Sony's doing that now. Facebook's doing it with the Oculus. What Oculus now has is the luxury of knowing that they have they're being backed by a company that has the global. They have the infrastructure, manufacturing, distribution, marketing, promotion, you name it. Think that they're going to make sure that this thing gets its shot at the mainstream market.
Here's the other thing. Prior to this, with $100 million, which sounds like a shitload of money, but most of it was gone at this point because they've hired a bunch of people. They spent a lot of money tooling and building custom hardware and all that stuff, and doing publishing deals, which we haven't heard about yet. But undoubtedly, people are making games for this thing, and that doesn't happen for free.
Facebook is a games publisher, like a real video games
Facebook
publisher.
is going to publish real video games. Yes, VR video, the realest video games. Oculus is walking a tightrope. No net. They don't have one of the big long poles to help you balance. They are one mistake either way, whether they ship a bad product or they make a bunch of people go blind, or some dude drops dead of a heart attack while playing Slender 17.
Right.
They have a massive problem.
Right.
And all of that can undo any of those things. The Today Show runs a story about kids jacking off in virtual reality.
Right.
They got real problems.
Right.
That's going to happen regardless.
Yeah, it's absolutely. It's only a matter of time. With okay,
That's
first you take
accessories.
first you
and
take the fleshlight, and then you put the motors on the outside, and then you plug it into the USB port.
And while having a massive corporate backer can shield from that, it also makes for bigger news. If Facebook goggles make kids go crazy, then that's a much bigger story.
But they have the benefit of having not infinite money, but a lot of money
As
and a lot of
close as-
lawyers
as close as
that
you can get to
that
having
can
infinite
insulate them from the ramifications of that stuff.
Right.
So I mean,
but it also becomes a lightning rod for those problems.
oh, absolutely. But like I said, it's a lightning rod. But now they have
I think
lightning rods.
I do think
It's a good analogy,
and
actually.
I'm assuming this only because this is the position I would be in. If you create something that you think, oh my God, this thing could be worth billions. This is the next big thing, but it could be worth nothing if we don't handle it right. That's a terrifying thing. Like it's like the story that Justin Timberlake tells Zuckerberg in the movie,
The
right?
documentary?
The guy that sold his company too early and ended up jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge.
Victoria's Secret.
Yeah,
is
the Victoria,
is
right. So you want to make sure. And again, that's why I still feel like I think part of the reason that they would. I think there's a little bit of fear behind this. I think that. Again, I don't know all what's going on day to day, what their financials are like, but I feel like they could have held out for more or sold even.
It's all about missed opportunities and opportunity costs.
But at some point, what's the difference between $2 billion and $10 billion?
Well,
right?
$8 billion.
I understand, but you have enough money to live and do whatever you want for as long as you live.
Yeah, I mean, all these people are
they're
rich.
fine.
That's great.
VCs take.
I know. VCs take most of the money.
Big chunk of it. I mean, none of those guys are billionaires.
Okay,
now.
so let's
for potentially changing the world.
But the doomsday. I think the doomsday. The point is the doomsday scenario that so many people were complaining about yesterday, where you put these goggles on and you're suddenly being assaulted by targeted ads no matter everywhere you go.
Yeah.
You're walking around some kind of virtual Facebook mall, like in Minority Report, where everyone's going, "Hey, poke you like me." That's the nightmare scenario. But I don't imagine anything like that happening.
It's going to happen
and
regardless.
If it was going to happen if Oculus was bought by Facebook or not.
If Oculus is open, Facebook's going to build VR Facebook for Oculus.
Right.
So
hold on. What if Amazon had bought them and they used the VR goggles to recreate brick and mortar buying experiences for Amazon?
You can do all of these things.
Well, Facebook can do that now.
But there's there's a reason
So
why,
can
for
so
example,
can Amazon.
there's a reason why the Kindle is the number one e-reader, is because whenever they bring out a new one, it's on the front page of Amazon, and millions of people see it every day. So when the time comes to bring this thing to market, Facebook are going to be able to put similar efforts behind making sure that people know what it is. Like already yesterday, like the number of news traffic on Oculus was probably 50 times bigger than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And
because
also,
just the name Facebook suddenly makes it a
Legitimizes.
story. Yeah.
it also won't cost as much as it would have, probably.
Right.
Well,
Well,
Facebook can subsidize
there are
costs.
probably
get
ways that
Hover
they
out
can
there.
subsidize it.
Facebook can make 100 million of them instead of having to take out loans.
just the scale,
Right.
just the scale and production lowers the cost. And if Oculus was going to cost $350, and Sony wanted to charge, the rumors say $300 for Project Morpheus, we could see Oculus for $200.
Look, I think
Don't get crazy.
people have a right to their skepticism. People have said to me like, "Oh, how many times has it worked out when a smaller company got bought by a big one and everything was great?"
All
Like,
the fucking time.
it actually happens all the time.
It happens all the
It
time.
actually happens all the time. I think a lot of the reasons why people don't like Facebook are well founded.
Oh yeah, I hate Facebook.
But you
Actively
but you
dislike.
still use it.
And
I-
you could use this Facebook product Oculus for gaming and never be on Facebook.
John Carmack doesn't have a Facebook account.
He said he's not going to have to open one.
Yeah, he said he's okay. So he will have one soon, I'm sure.
Speaking of Carmack,
if I didn't have a Facebook account, if I didn't have to have a Facebook account for work, I probably wouldn't have a Facebook.
somebody pointed out, I think it was Chris Kohler from Wired quoted someone, and I thought this was a good idea, a good point, is that Carmack now becomes like the canary in the coal mine. Because Carmack is
Yeah,
a
he
guy
can
who's
punch
not
out.
afraid to say what he thinks.
Yeah.
He can walk away. He's never going to be short of a job. He's never going to be short of money. And I think he's a guy that has real integrity. I think he joined Oculus because he genuinely believes in it. If he doesn't like the way 6 months from now or a year doesn't like the way the wind is blowing with what Facebook's doing,
Yeah.
he's not going to stay quiet.
And here's the other thing that Carmack pointed out on Twitter that I hadn't even considered. But Facebook is one of 3 or 4 companies in the world that has experience making massively available, always available servers, right? Like we laugh about Facebook, and it was a line in the movie that Facebook doesn't go down, but they have one of the biggest data center infrastructures in the world.
We're talking about virtual space.
Yeah,
and
along with Amazon and Google. And if you look at the companies, and to a lesser extent Microsoft, if you look at those companies, the companies that can build the metaverse,
hyperspace.
right?
Yeah, there's only
Facebook, Google, Amazon, Microsoft.
Yeah, very small group of
Apple can't
companies
do it.
that can do that.
Data
Right.
centers, yeah. Lawnmower man.
So,
So the Kickstarter thing.
yeah, this is
The Kickstarter.
This is the dumbest part of all
If
of
the
it.
stuff that we talked about was dumb, this is dumb
Now,
squared.
Dumb and this podcast
This is
should be
Jeff
called Dumb and
Bridges?
Dumber. Yeah.
This is the Jeff Bridges part. People are upset because they I assume are too and these are smart people. Notch, Joel Johnson. People are
So
people,
Notch had both the Kickstarter complaint and the I hate Facebook.
Okay, that's fine. I'm fine with him hating Facebook, and I'm fine with him taking Minecraft and taking his ball and going home because it's his fucking ball. He can do whatever he wants.
But his Kickstarter complaint, the way he worded it was he didn't pitch in
10 grand.
10 grand so that Oculus could use it as
Seed
seed
money.
money to get bought later.
But he surely understood that when he put in the 10 grand, he wasn't buying the authority to play a part in that decision making.
He was trying to help bring VR
Something
into
cool.
reality, which he did.
So Joel Johnson wrote a thing on Valleywag that was actually pretty, despite disagreeing with his overall premise. The upshot is that people thought that this was the future and that these guys were bellwether and they were scrappy upstarts, and that basically the true underdog story ended with them selling to Facebook and becoming part of the faceless multinational machine that they were fighting in the first place.
Right.
It's very, very naive. I think that the Kickstarter, the complaint about Kickstarter is that people said, "Oh, I never would have backed them if I thought they were just going to sell it to fucking Facebook," and they felt like they were helping the underdog. But either they didn't pay attention, didn't realize that they then subsequently took $18 million and $73 million in additional funding, or something like $100 million more money, basically, on top of the 2.5 that they raised from Kickstarter, or they don't realize how much it costs to make fucking hardware.
And even dumber, people somehow think, apparently misinterpreted what putting money into a Kickstarter is. They think that that they're getting some kind of equity in the company.
Oh my god! It is. The comments are like, "Hey man, I put my $10 in. Where's my $2,800?" Which, when you back a Kickstarter, there are like 4 different places that it says, "Hey, this is not an investment."
Right.
Investing at this scale
You
is
get the
illegal.
rewards that were offered to you.
Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe.
There's
You
no
get the
legally
rewards.
binding anything.
No, you are.
Kickstarter is saying, "Hey, this is a way for you to support something you think is cool. It'll probably work out."
And they have done that, and they helped it now get to a point where it goes to the next level. Mm-hmm. But there is this weird thing. It's like, again, and I don't know why anyone's surprised, because this is the model. This is what companies do, whether you be WhatsApp or any of these little Instagram. You build something, you get to a point where you create critical mass, and a big company comes along and buys you.
Here's the thing that happened. Kickstarter let this get money to get started, to do the very beginning stuff, because that first round of funding was the hardest thing that they had to do, because they had prototypes. The early prototypes they had looked like they were made by a fucking serial killer in his garage.
The first round of dev kits.
Right. And by raising $2.5 million on Kickstarter and selling 9,500 dev kits, whatever it is they sold, 75,000 dev kits, that let them reach a point where when they went to the VCs and said, "Hey, we need more money to make this happen. Can you give us money?" They could take it on much better terms than they would have otherwise. Because if you're a person with nothing and you go to people with a bunch of money and say, "Hey, I would like a lot of money for something,"
They will
then,
own you.
then they will give it to you, and then you will be theirs. So when they want to bail out, then you sell,
Right.
and when you
Yeah.
and then you get ousted 6 months down the road.
Yeah.
Like that's the bad outcome.
Yeah,
that $2.5 million
Kickstarter
on
phase of
Kickstarter.
Oculus, as it is with many Kickstarter projects, to build it to a point where they can then go and get real
Right.
money.
So those guys, like the traditional way to do that is to go to all of your friends and all of your family and say, "Hey, can you give me 10 grand and scratch together enough 10 grands that
And again, it's
that
not
you
like,
can build your thing?"
It's not like this is unprecedented. Chris Roberts did it with Star Citizen. Which is a really popular
Mm-hmm.
Kickstarter. He took the Kickstarter money, and then went away and got a lot more from outside investors. Veronica Mars Kickstarter ended up getting money from the studio. Like this happens all the time. This is basically the default model now.
That Veronica Mars Kickstarter showed, hey, because the thing about movies and surveys and online petitions and all that bullshit is that everybody will click their name on a thing, but it's hard to say, okay, I'll put my $10 behind this and go see the movie, right?
Right.
$4 million in the Veronica Mars Kickstarter told Warner Brothers, hey, people want to see this movie, and then they kicked $4 million doesn't make Veronica Mars the movie. Probably. I don't know what movies cost, but that seems like not enough money.
No, it might
to
make
a
it,
movie.
but it probably doesn't market it and do everything else.
And
you've
get
got
it
to
in
do.
theaters and
the
make prints. Yeah. So that $4 million tells Warner Brothers, okay, probably this is worth investing in. We'll do it. And then, of course, they fuck it up in a bunch of other ways. But all told, that thing wouldn't exist. The Oculus wouldn't exist without Kickstarter.
Right.
Or alternately, Palmer and the guys that started Oculus would not be in the position they are and still have the equity. I'm saying the capital that they have inside that company, so that they're still the ones making decisions.
So what does the Oculus world look like 5 years from now?
I think Oculus is a games thing for a fairly long time.
I think and I think that's the way that Facebook sees it. I think it is a game. I always say games has always been the most immediate application for
the
it.
bellwether.
But again, what you see beyond that is education, training. I mean, this is going to be a huge. I think it's going to have multiple applications down the road.
We've seen education applications for the Oculus that are awesome, really, really amazing stuff, and that's only going to get better.
I mean, think of it this way: it's like graphics cards for computers. It's best used for games, and gamers buying graphics cards and funding that industry
then-
is why NVIDIA and AMD and Intel can spend money researching parallel processing and in that type of programmable cores, and that technology gets put in supercomputers that solve
Well,
world problems.
but also when that's ubiquitous, then we change the way renderers on desktop operating systems work, so they work better and smoother and are more reliable.
And that's why we have smartphones.
And I do think there's going to be other entertainment applications for it. I think I know that certain film companies are already investing in trying to film like 360 degrees wraparound scenes, cameras, so you can actually experience
they've announced those.
like a hollow novel,
Yeah.
right? So you can actually be in the room as a scene is taking place, and you can look around and feel like you're taking part in the scene.
Yeah.
Obviously, that allows for kind of interactivity as well. This stuff is the potential is really. I'm tremendously excited. I think it's a real. Again, once you put those goals, like most of the people that are cynical about Oculus haven't really spent a lot of time in it, or it just wasn't. They got sick. It wasn't for them. I think they're going to fix those problems.
5 years from now, it won't be goggles; it'll be glasses.
Yeah, it'll be something else.
And here's the other thing. What having the resources of a company the size of Facebook means to Oculus and to us is that instead of this stuff taking 2 years to get to the third version and 5 years to get to the next version after that, is that they're going to roll out a first version and then they have the money to do whatever the fuck they want.
I think that it's if I'm Palmer and Brendan and these guys and Carmack, I'm thinking, well, finally, like we can like breathe out. We can stop worrying about whether or not we're going to mess this up.
They don't have to worry that
we have
some
a major
dude's going to
company
die.
backing us. They're not going to. Again, I actually would have been much more cynical had it been Google, because again, you look at how quick Google will like throw a few $1 billion at a thing, but they're so huge and so diversified. They're like, that didn't work out. Close it, move on to the next thing.
Right.
Like, it could easily have lived and died a couple of years.
I mean, on the other hand, Google bought Android, and that's like been a massive success.
Right, but for every Android, there's like 10 other little things they invest in that end up coming to
Reader.
nothing.
Google
Because they
Reader,
just throw
yeah.
everything at the wall and see what hits.
If it doesn't
and that's their
stick,
strategy, and it's
yeah.
worked very well for them. But I would have been worried about Oculus under Google.
Yeah,
I think Amazon, I think, would have I would have been interested.
I don't understand what Amazon VR is. Apple is neat. I'd love to see what Apple does with that kind of hardware. But again, it's not going to be for games. Because if you think game developers hate Facebook, they really fucking hate Apple.
Honestly, 6 months ago, I would have said Microsoft or Sony because I felt like that's the next big thing.
God,
But Sony have got their own solution. I'd be really interested to see what Microsoft's going to do because they're going to be the only guys left without
what a
playing
disaster
on this
if
field.
Microsoft buys Oculus.
What's that?
What a shit show if Microsoft buys Oculus.
I don't know.
I don't know if that's the case.
I wouldn't be cynical. I mean, with games being the application, it makes perfect sense.
See how long games last at Microsoft.
They're going to have to do something because whether you have if you have a PC, you're going to have a solution by the end of the year probably. If you've got a Sony, a PlayStation, you'll have a solution.
Well, the
Microsoft,
wild card is
I'm still going to be
Valve.
waving my hands at the Kinect.
I mean, the wild card is Valve.
Well, okay.
Developers.
Going back to Microsoft, the reason it would be a problem with Microsoft, and yes, it makes sense for games because of Xbox, is that they would try to shoehorn a Windows experience into it and rush everything outside of games.
Right.
As opposed to Facebook, which they have no need to rush because they don't have
There's no
OS
They have no
platform.
agenda.
Right now they are selling ads on the webpage.
Well, and the fundamental reason not to rush this is that while the games industry has a good understanding of how to make 3D worlds, movies, TV, none of the other media industries have any fucking clue what to do with this. So it's going to take a lot of experimenting and a lot of noodling around and a lot of trying stuff that fails to figure out.
Once again, just
Neil
as-
Stephenson didn't figure out what this is in 1992.
Just as
when he
with
wrote
any
Snow
new
Crash.
technology, the porn industry will lead the way.
I don't know if I want VR porn.
If you think of
I think that might be
Oculus
gross.
as Oculus as a company, the fact that Sony, and none of it's proprietary in terms of like the components you buy, what Sony's proven with Morpheus is that they can get something very similar to Oculus. However much money they spent on it.
Right.
I think Facebook what they bought was the mind share right now for VR. And that's it.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's
They
not. I
could've
mean,
done-
and Sony even admitted that a lot of the if you talk to anyone out there, whether it be Sony or anyone else who's got a non-Oculus VR solution, if you say to them how much Oculus hardware is in here or inspired by Oculus, they're like a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, the Oculus approach is pretty much what's being copied or emulated elsewhere.
Which is the fear we're talking about, that anyone at Microsoft or Google could have come in, spent tens of millions of dollars developing an Oculus competitor, because the only reason the Oculus works is because it tapped into the technologies that were ripe at the time to make VR.
You mean the cell phone component, cheap cell phone components, basically.
And since Microsoft didn't buy them, I've got to believe that somewhere in Redmond in a room there's like a duct taped together pair of prototype glasses.
I'm going
or
to go ahead and
something.
tell you right now, there's 4 teams in rooms next door to each other, all with machine guns building competing prototypes. Because that's the way Microsoft works. The best one will survive.
Well, I mean, it's something. I was going to say, like, because a year from now, if this takes off and Microsoft are left holding their dick, the CEO is going to come in and say, guys, what
the fuck,
happened?
man?
Although everything I hear is that it's kind of going the other way, and that the new CEO of Microsoft just wants the Xbox division gone anyway. It doesn't make money; he just wants to sell it.
That was Elop's desire.
But
Whether
I'm
it's
hearing
the new
that's what I'm
CEO,
hearing
I don't know.
about the new current guy.
So the thing, right, and that's the thing. Who knows how long Microsoft will be in games?
Well, I mean, I think the Xbox will always be around. It would be bought by someone else. Too valuable a brand.
Of
but
course.
whether or not it's owned by Microsoft, who knows?
The other interesting thing that Microsoft does have with Kinect is the only full body skeletal tracking camera that we've seen that actually works. Like, the games have been kind of shit, but the technology works, and that's something.
Don't get me started on.
But
this.
that's something like that sense of presence being like when you're playing. Let's talk about Couch Nights. When you're playing Couch Nights, which is a game where 2 people sit down on couches, there's avatars on a coffee
Right, is it
table.
Knights as in like Knights of the Round Table?
KNIGHTS,
Okay,
yeah.
So
all right.
the idea is that you're sitting in a virtual living room, which Oculus Imagine, when you play the Oculus, you would be sitting down at your chair or on a couch
Right.
in the living room.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a multiplayer game, so it's 2 network PCs, and 2 people are wearing Oculus Development Kit 2s.
Okay.
And your avatars, you have physical body avatars sitting on these couches adjacent. Like, so Will's sitting in that position, I'm sitting in this position.
Okay.
And in front of us is a coffee table. And because there's head tracking and we're holding controllers in our hands, we can look at each other in the virtual world.
So it's like a one-to-one recreation
a
of your actual
one-to-one.
real space.
No, it's
Well,
not.
it
It's
doesn't need to
a real space.
There's a space in the virtual. So Will and I don't need to be sitting here. He could be in a different room. He could
I could be across the country.
Okay,
But in that
okay.
virtual space, we're not sitting next to each other. And when I move my head to the right to look at him in the virtual space, he sees that head on my avatar look at him. So he
Okay.
knows I'm addressing
And it was
him.
creepy. It was creepy and executed kind of poorly, but you could see it. And it's the first time I've looked down in a game and seen my hands there where I was holding the controller. I was like, oh, presence. I
That's
get
my
this.
body.
That's me. Like I didn't.
You
I
get
didn't.
that phantom limb thing.
There's
yeah,
absolutely Phantom Limb because
yeah.
you want to move the controller. If you stood still, if you just didn't move your hands at all, you would believe that was your body
Right.
in that virtual world,
Right.
or at least you had control over that virtual body.
Right.
At some point, I looked down and lifted my foot up to put it on the fake coffee table, the virtual coffee table. I was surprised that both the foot in the game didn't move and that there was no coffee table there. No, I'm not like honest to God.
What's the actual game?
So the game
It's not-
because
it's a demo.
Knights, so it's a small little game avatars that are all sitting on the coffee table, and it's a fighting game. You can run around the coffee table, and it's a combat game.
Okay.
And they're tiny little dolls that run around. But what we didn't realize until halfway through the demo is that these dolls could also jump off the table and run around the living room around these physical avatars.
Okay.
So run behind you, and as you're wearing the Oculus, you'd want to turn around, look over
Right.
your shoulder, and see these little Toy Story avatars running around.
That's
it was
cool.
it was amazing. Like it was. Super
I'm telling
cool.
you, we're even just you talk about medical training, all kinds of stuff like that, flight simulations, whatever. Just in the game space, we are. It's easy to imagine walking around through 3D tunnels and stuff, feeling like you're really there. But what you just described, I think, is just one of like a million different. I was talking to a few people at GDC. Oh man, I saw this thing and that thing, and it's like all stuff like you wouldn't even have thought of, but someone thought of it. And so there are going to be so many amazing game applications for it.
It's the kind of technology that empowers a million innovations, right?
And audio is going to be so important to that.
It's true.
Realistic positional audio.
Oh, yeah.
Where if it's a network experience where, let's say, 6 or a dozen people are sitting in a virtual space or standing in a virtual space,
Right.
and everyone's talking, and you get a sense of where they're talking from their
Right.
headphones, and then you can actually engage with them by looking at them and hear them.
Without those audio cues, you don't know where to look.
That's why it's a communications platform.
Again, hey, look, VR. I'm just glad because, like I said, my fear I think was very similar to yours in the sense that we knew it was a
Jeremy
great
wanted
thing,
that.
We're in the
but
state of
it could
VR.
easily. It was always Oculus is such a small company. It could easily end up being a flash in the pan. Like, oh man, remember when VR could have been a thing, but they screwed it up. I feel like between Sony and Facebook. Yes, it will get commercialized. Yes, it will get monetized. Yes, there will be parts of it that we probably find irksome, just like we do about our Apple products and our Microsoft products and our Google products. There will be commercials. There will be all kinds of things. They're going to want to make money out of it. But I think one way or another now, we are pretty assured that VR in the next few years is going to get its shot at the title.
It will continue.
It's going to get a legitimate shot. And if it doesn't work, it's because the market has decided that it doesn't want VR, and I don't think that's going to happen. It won't
could,
be
but I mean, who
because it
knows?
won't be because somebody screwed up like in the first year of development or whatever.
It's not going to be a 3D TV situation where they're trying to shovel something down our throats we don't want.
Yeah.
This is something
3D
that
TV
once you try this, it's super
I'm
compelling.
not, I'm not suggesting that just because major companies are behind it, it's going to be a success. We've seen the 3D TV, right? The industry tried so hard to push 3D, both in the theaters and at home, and ultimately consumers rejected it. You can't force people to buy something they don't like.
Yep.
But
Or
I think
there's no
people-
ecosystem for.
But I think people will like VR.
So
So there needs to be both a software and hardware ecosystem to support Oculus as a product. Right now, in games, that makes sense because there are game developers eager to develop games for it, and there are people with gaming PCs that can run it because Oculus doesn't have that self-contained. Facebook isn't a hardware company, and in yesterday's investor call, Mark Zuckerberg said they're still not a hardware company. So they're going to have to rely on both the software side and the hardware side to complement this technology.
So to wrap this up, because we've been talking about this for a long time, I think, when something like this happens, you can take the statements that both parties make at face value, or you can assume that they're all lying and they're trying to pull something over on you. When you have a company that actually is making something good and compelling, like Oculus, and not somebody who's getting bailed out of a bad business model for IP or people or whatever, I think you have to take the statements made at face value.
Well,
I
think
could be completely wrong, and 2 years from now we could be playing Quake 17, brought to you by fucking Axe body spray, where.
But that's already happening, just not in VR.
Yeah, Quake Live, ad supported Quake Live.
which was a failure, I think, ultimately. Anyway, the upshot is we could be completely wrong. Who knows? I think that this is a good thing for VR and for Oculus
a
and
middle
for
ground.
us.
I think you can just blindly say, you can take what people are saying at face value and say, well, our corporate overlords will surely we can trust them, Or you can say, oh, this is terrible. I'm immediately deciding that whatever happens is bad. Or
Change is bad!
Or there's a middle ground.
I
Where
like
you can say, I kind of like what you're saying, but, let's wait and see. There's reasons to be skeptical and optimistic. And that's kind of where I am. But I'm leaning more towards optimistic than skeptical.
I would like to subscribe to your newsletter, Gary Whitta.
The middle ground.
The middle ground.
The
A
moderate.
reasoned approach to internet commentary and trolling.
Look, the internet, every time Facebook redesigns something or anytime anything happens, it's just the nature of the internet. Everyone has a shit fit. Everyone overreacts. I said the first thing I tweeted out yesterday was like, it's amazing to me how many people have already figured out this deal and decided it's no good in less time than it even takes to read one article about it. Because within 60 seconds of it being announced, there was like 100 people going, oh, this is terrible. This is the worst thing ever. It's just a knee-jerk reaction.
Rabble.
Sometimes it's good to go away and think about something for 5 minutes before you put your opinion out there.
You're too late.
But on Twitter, it's a rush, right? So I've got to be one of the first people to say something, even though I haven't really given it a moment's thought.
I
And
was
that's
playing
not
with
good.
the baby when the news broke.
What's
I
that?
bet you could cash all those retweets in for $2 billion.
You know what should be cashed in for $2 billion?
Oh, is this a segue coming up?
Norm's fucking picture of me with my mouth open.
Oh, no, you want to talk about people
You're
who
the face of
you want to talk about
Oculus.
people who are
God damn it.
Face
people
of
who have a
the white
Where's
man.
my fucking Facebook check, motherfuckers?
If you want to talk about people who have a genuine right to be aggrieved because they haven't earned out of this what they should be earning, you are that man.
Where's my money?
You signed no release,
Exactly. I signed no release.
So-
except for your employment.
So
But
for
the-
those,
but-
for those
fuck.
who don't know the background,
Berman Bronze money.
Will, there's a picture of Will that I believe Norm took for tested.
For tested,
as
which
an
means
official piece
it's
of
the
tested
company's
content
money.
Of Will wearing
I didn't sign any release.
a pair of Oculus
I
goggles.
didn't sign likeness rights over.
doing the classic Oculus O face, like, oh, this is so I'm in VR and this is amazing. And there's a lot of these pictures. It was a subject of a popular Tumblr recently.
Thanks,
but for some
BuzzFeed.
reason, as the story blew up yesterday in the mainstream press, because suddenly Oculus became a major story. Excuse me.
Bless you.
As Oculus became a major story, people needed a picture of someone wearing these goggles to illustrate it. And for some reason, you
Well,
became,
Norm-
you became the
hold on.
poster, literally
No,
the
it's-
poster boy.
It's a group effort.
You could think
Norm's
think-
photo
and-
is wonderful.
and you could think BuzzFeed, whoever the editor of
don't-
BuzzFeed who started that
can
Tumblr,
these-
use it as
can
the
these
lead
companies
photo.
even legally just take that
Nope.
picture and
No.
use it
No.
without
Nope.
attribution or
Nope.
anything?
No, they cannot.
But what are you going to do?
That's how the internet works.
How can you can't stop these people?
What are you going to do?
Google image search, copy and paste, put it on a story, we're done.
Right.
Welcome to the brave new world
And
of
the thing
professional
that,
journalism.
The thing that galls me, I'm fine. It's a thing that happens because it's a good. Norm took a really nice picture of me doing something dumb, which is fine. The thing that galls me is that people who know us and know the site and know where that fucking picture came from,
Right.
attribute it to the fucking Tumblr.
right.
The white guys wearing Oculus Rifts.tumblr.com.
Because as luck would have it, that hit like a week before.
Yeah, it was a happy coincidence. Anyway,
But you're kind of internet famous now, more so than you've ever been.
You know
because
what?
of this.
The best thing that happened to this, the girl who went out with the Magic the Gathering guy that worked for Gawker. Do you remember that?
the one who wrote that horrible
The one who wrote the horrible story about him.
Yeah.
It works at Yahoo News now, and she stole the
Wait,
picture.
wait. That's the girl?
She's the girl who stole the picture
Wait,
for
I didn't know
Yahoo.
she was the Gawker Magic
She was
the Gathering
the
dating.
Gox guy.
Wow.
That story
Yeah.
was horrible. That's
So,
one,
yeah,
that's one of the
she's
reasons
clearly
why I
a
hate to
horrible
hate
person.
Gawker.
God.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'll add to her list of crimes stealing a picture of me from us. Tested.
Wow. Thanks,
Yeah,
thanks,
you
David
should-
Pogue.
You should have made some money out of that.
Thanks, Dave Pogue.
That's outrageous.
Where's my fucking Oculus check? I'd take a free dev kit. I'll be
Did
honest.
you order the dev kit, the new one?
We did.
Yes.
I did too. I'm excited about it.
I got
and
billed 3 times for it.
I got billed 3 times too.
Oh, you did? Oh,
Yeah.
shit.
They
I
need
should
to
check to
can-
see
they
if I
need to
got
cancel.
billed.
They
They
canceled
will-
it. It took care of
have not
itself.
done
So
that.
July, the
automatically.
new one should be arriving.
July.
It's like I love my Oculus, but so many people that have tried the new one said it's such a night and day difference. Even without trying the new one, I just don't even want to use the old
The
one.
old one's
anymore.
great. Makes the new one makes the old one look like a turd sandwich.
Yeah, I'm excited about the new one. Can't wait to get it.
I'm excited for 5 years from now.
Oh,
Yeah,
I am too.
You know what? Here's the thing.
The fact that we're
treadmill
excited,
thing-
the fact that we're excited for 5 years from now is why
Listen.
Zuckerberg bought that.
I think if there's a fear, it's the fear that becomes too successful. That not everyone,
Yeah.
but there are certain pockets of the population that will end up in like a Ready Player One type future.
Well, I was gonna say-
all it takes is one really, really good immersive MMO type game.
Yeah.
and there are going to be people
See
that
ya.
will never get off the
Surrogates.
couch again.
I'm telling you.
it's an alternative surrogates.
I'm telling you, the real, like that treadmill thing, the what those people should be doing, food and poop couch. Something you just jack into,
Yeah.
you lay down, you never get up,
There'll be an
and the
I-
food
there'll be an
comes
I-
in
there'll
one
be an
end, the
IV
poop comes out the
an IV
other,
drip,
filtered and converted
and
back
some
into
kind
food.
of waste disposal
Yep.
mechanism.
Gamer, that movie, Gamer.
Yeah,
I never
you won't
watched
ever
that.
have to leave.
I'm just telling you, that's treadmill's completely wrong angle with this. It's the
gonna happen.
Wall-E couch. That's what
gonna
we all
happen.
need.
There's gonna be there'll be a service of people who will wear cameras, and you can be their avatar.
Oh my god!
Where you
that
can
would be
walk
amazing.
around and you have headphones, and they tell you what to do. And they
Hey,
will
are
see
you going to go
in
to the
perspective.
Bet concert tonight?
No, I'm setting my avatar.
Okay. Well, I'll see you there, man. You want to jack into the chat room?
Which one
Yeah,
will
it
you
really,
be?
would be, it really would be like the
I'll be the
Matrix.
hot-
where,
hot
like
blonde.
you get to wear better clothes. You
Yeah,
get to look
we're all skinny.
badass. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's
No
happening.
laundry. You never have to do laundry. You just have the gel couch. It does a gentle massage every few days.
Pudding. I need lots of pudding.
Bill Cosby delivers it personally. The feds are saying they're going to tax Bitcoin, Norm. How does this make you feel as a Bitcoin holder?
As someone who's not made any money.
Where's
on
my
Bitcoin,
You
$400?
invested in Bitcoin.
Oh, see, you weren't here for the great South
too
by
late.
Southwest recap.
It's
no,
too late.
No.
We're not going to go over it again.
I'll
I don't
give
really
you-
wanna talk
I will
about
give you the
Bitcoin.
2-sentence summary.
Okay.
When we were at South by Southwest, Will and I bought a Bitcoin, almost one whole Bitcoin.
Also, a taco.
With that Bitcoin, we spent a fraction of it on a taco, which we shared and ate. Now Will's going to get his cash back for that Bitcoin.
I want my
and I will-
$400.
And I will be the sole proprietor of our Bitcoin, which has gone down in $40 since South by Southwest.
I feel like I made the right decision by extracting my $405.
Bitcoin just feels like the kind of thing that just stay far away from it. As possible.
Hey, do you want an easy way to buy drugs and or launder money? Bitcoin. The feds are saying if you make money on Bitcoin, if you buy $1 worth of Bitcoin and then use that $1 to buy a $2 taco, you owe capital gains on the $1 that you made to buy the taco.
Okay.
I think that's perfectly fair.
I mean, I really don't care about Bitcoin.
Thanks for participating, Gary.
I don't know enough about it to speak intelligently. I just know it's kind
When
of
has
scary.
that ever stopped you?
That's true.
Yeah.
But it's a particularly low level of knowledge. I mean, I
Okay,
know
okay.
literally nothing. Mostly, I'm usually able to weigh in with strong opinions about subjects I know almost nothing about.
Hey,
I know literally nothing about.
I have something else crazy that got completely overshadowed by the Oculus thing yesterday.
What?
NVIDIA released a $3,000 video card.
Yes, let's talk about the Titan Z.
Why did? What I want to know is
It's
why
just
they
big
went
dick on a
straight
table.
to Z. Because
this is
there's
it.
no room to improve from
Maybe
there.
they'll start working backwards.
Because that's the end of the Titan series.
Oh wow, you think? What's that? What's bigger than a Titan? It's gods and then Titans. There's nothing bigger than the Titans in Greek mythology, is there? There's
Yeah.
the mother and the father.
Even in the Warcraft mythology, the Titans doesn't get any bigger than the Titans.
Right. Everything. The Titan
Yeah.
is the big one.
Titan's big.
So they're
In
going to have to
Titanfall,
reset.
The
Right.
Titans are the biggest things.
Well, maybe it's Titan Rise. That's the sequel.
Oh.
We fight Titans in space.
So $3,000
So that's
for
why
a
the
video card is
Skylanders-
pretty crazy.
What is this for people who want to play video games, or is this for people who want to do
Video
computing?
games.
Norm,
Video games.
why do you need a $3,000 video card?
You
Because
don't.
you have
Your money
fuck
is
you money.
your
You
infinite
You don't, but
money.
there are the one,
you
there,
just
there are,
sold to
there are the
Facebook for
one,
$2
there are the
billion.
one percenters that just want to have the most ridiculously crazy thing.
Right.
And this is
If
that
you're-
now becomes that product.
Well, what's-
Robin Williams.
Yeah.
And you don't build your own PC, but you buy a new one every 4 years to play Call of Duty.
Okay.
And you tell your guy, I need, hey, here's
just, I want the top of the just to
Max
test
it
the,
out.
test the best of everything.
here's $10,000, build me something.
This is that.
What's that PC gamer machine called that they put 4 Titans in?
Large pixel collider.
Yeah, so it's this. So each of it's good,
a good
right?
name.
It's a good name. Each of these cards is 2 Titans
Two
plus.
Titan Blacks.
What's a 2 Titan Black? That's
Titan Black
a-
is the new Titan that came out a month ago.
So they put 2 of those on a card.
Yes, and you can SLI them. Two of them.
Do you have
So this thing apparently is good for like 5K gaming on multiple monitors.
Do you have-
this? Okay, yes, it's good for 5K gaming or multi monitors,
Well, hold on. What's 5K gaming?
5K resolution gaming.
So 5,000 vertical lines.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how big that monitor is.
This is bigger than Jesus.
It's multi monitor.
Oh,
I see.
It's a
Or, and you can SLI them. Each of these cards has 12 gigs of RAM. So 2 of them together, 24 gigs.
my
So
whole
of RAM.
computer has
If you were
12
to
gigs
get
of
so
RAM.
basically, if you wanted the ultimate PC gaming experience right now,
Yeah,
a good thing to do would be build a system around a Titan Z and get a big screen 4K TV.
that's pretty good.
Build a system
That would
around
be a good way
2
to go.
Titan Zs
And get 3 4K TVs.
and get 3 4K TVs put vertically.
I don't like the borders around the separate. I just want one big 4K.
You get a projector.
Whatever the top of the range 4K TV is right now, it's probably like 100 inches or something. I would get that, a Titan Z, and I would play games
Titan Zs.
in the best way possible.
Yeah,
I-
I think I wouldn't be surprised if they put 2 of those Titan Z's in the large pixel collider.
That'd be pretty insane.
$3,000 is like you gotta have some massive power supplies to run this thing too. I'm sure,
it is,
right?
but it is. But once you're at that level, you're kind of at that level of like if you care about how much it costs, you can't afford it.
I mean, that's
this
true.
is for people that don't care about how much it costs.
Right. If you have $500,000,
All you care about is how fast you can get it shipped to your door.
Yeah. Can
Yeah.
somebody bring it by today?
Yeah. How much more do I have to pay to have it sent to my house immediately?
Oh. HTC announced the latest in the One series, Norm.
HTC One,
It's still called the HTC One.
still called HTC One.
Which this is like the third
It's the new
HTC One
HTC
now.
HTC One.
Wasn't there One X too?
That's not technically an HTC One.
Well, it's still a One something.
This is just HTC One.
This should be the HTC One Z. If we're going using NVIDIA naming schemes, what's special about the HTC One new edition?
It's new software, fastest hardware, slightly new design.
Is it bigger?
It's 5 inches. Yes.
Wow.
Now, your pick for the top Android phone would still be the Nexus 5, right?
For price, yeah. Off contract, $350.
But
Nexus-
you're like you have an HTC One and you have a Nexus 5. You carry the Nexus 5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure the new HTC One is
that's what
the
I would get.
camera
I
is
would
supposed to
get
be great.
whatever vanilla Google Play edition of it. If I had to go Android, that's what I would get.
But you
So
can
Nexus
also
5.
get the new HTC One Google Play edition. It's just $700.
Wow.
So it's twice as much as the
Nexus.
Nexus 5.
Yeah.
I like, I've got a reputation for kind of being down on Android, but every
No.
time since Norm has switched, I occasionally spend some time just like scrolling around on his phone. I like it.
It like the black slab design is pretty nice.
I like the design. I'm jealous of the larger screen. I do hope that Apple comes out with a larger screen this year.
you and Donald Trump.
Wow, what's going on with Donald Trump?
Donald Trump said he really hopes that the rumors are true.
No, he says
Apple is going to make a 5-inch screen, a larger phone.
Donald Trump said, I've said this for a long time, and I'm glad sounds like Apple's going to make a 5-inch screen, larger phone. I told them they should have done it.
Yeah, of course Donald Trump puts it in a way like somehow Apple give a shit about what he says.
Yep. That's exactly how he put it.
You don't think Apple gives a shit about what he says?
I'm sure Apple would love to be
Johnny
to enjoy.
Ive is on the Celebrity Apprentice next go round.
It's like, yeah, I mean, take a look at Donald Trump. He's clearly like the style guru that Johnny Ive should be
Man, that hair.
taking
It's
pointers from.
quite architectural.
There's a 5-megapixel selfie cam on the HTC One.
Selfie cams are going to be a thing, guys.
That's-
I don't want to alarm you.
Unfortunately, that is going to be a thing.
It is 100%. People are
the,
going
front,
to
the front camera has become much more important in the post-selfie age.
Front camera, wide angle selfie cam
Yeah.
is a thing that we all have
Yeah.
to live with. I
All
hope
you
you're
need is
happy.
an accessory that puts a mirror.
Nobody wants fucking accessories.
No.
And we actually remember we tested that thing.
Was there a thing?
There was a thing that you stuck on your phone, like you sleeved it on to make the rear cam the selfie cam.
It is going to.
2 years
the thing
ago,
is,
those
a lot
people were
of,
way
sel-
ahead of
a
their
lot of
time.
selfies are taken in mirrors, but for the ones that are taken just through the front camera, then I think I'm guessing that what we'll see in the next generation of phones going forward is that the front camera is going to be as good as the back camera.
All you need is a belt accessory that sticks out so you can cradle the phone on the mount, and so you can have both hands in your selfie cam.
Will just took selfies
If
while we were talking.
if you're a selfie pro like me, you can capture an amazing image like that with the rear cam, no look. That's what. Yeah, those are real winners.
Good job.
New Facebook profile picture.
You should do have you done a guide to taking selfies on Tested
Fuck
yet?
off.
Why
should-
would
should
you
you
do
call
that?
him Paul-
You
call
gotta-
him Powell?
You can think of all the hits, man. You got to get with the zeitgeist. This is what will bring the young people to the site.
Really?
Yes.
I don't think young people are beyond selfies.
Are they?
They're
are they
into
onto the next thing?
Uzis.
The minute that people like us start talking about
Yep.
it, they're onto the next
It's like
thing.
Rick-
You should talk about it more then.
Yeah, when my mom
We want to
said,
stop
"Hey,
the trend.
I want you to check out this link," and it was a Rickroll, I knew that was over.
Yeah,
Then it was on the Today Show.
yeah. We see people. We think that like we're no longer powerful, like in the cultural landscape. But we don't have the power to create things that are popular. We have the power to destroy them.
That's a dad
by
logic right
making them
there.
uncool.
That's like saying, "Hey, I don't want my kid to do heroin, so I'm going to get a real public heroin habit." Look how cool heroin is, daughter.
Oh, Dad,
Should we talk about what we were testing and not ever talk about this again?
I don't know how you get to heroin from that. It's just that,
It was front of mind.
let's go to the
I don't know, I was
darkest
just
place possible.
Thinking about heroin, it seemed like a good idea. Gary Whitta, it has been a really long time since you've been on the show. What have you been testing?
I actually haven't been testing a whole lot.
You're talking into the wrong part of the microphone. By
I
the
haven't.
Way.
I've been doing that the whole show.
No,
It's
no.
a good
You've
time to tell me.
been inching further every time.
I haven't been testing a whole lot. Simply, I just haven't. There hasn't been a whole lot of like new stuff that I've been excited by. I've been using my Xbox One a lot.
What do you think about that? What do you hold on? The Xbox One is a multi-purpose device. Do you have your TV hooked through it
Yes,
still?
and I haven't had any difficulties with it. I use it as my TV device.
Are you getting value from that?
Yes.
Commensurate with the amount of electricity you're wasting?
Yes, I am getting a ton of value because I do switch Xbox go to Netflix, Xbox go to Titanfall, Xbox go to YouTube. It's great.
I hope somebody's listening to this in their living room right now.
That'd be funny.
Xbox on.
It would be. It's excellent. It's great to just be able to jump back and forth between all those different applications.
Well, and we both have small children, so when you have to leave the room and you're watching something, being able to just say Xbox pause as you're leaving the room instead of fumbling
Yes.
for the remote is
The
almost worth the price of admission on its own.
The problem that I have is it doesn't matter how many times I calibrate it, whether it's my accent or whatever it is, I don't know. It's still very, very picky about what it will respond to.
I find that the Jack Bauer method works really well. You use it once with the normal voice, and then you yell at it.
My wife has to speak in like a tenor, like a really deep voice.
Use
Yeah.
telephone voice.
Or like a baritone, the lowest. I can't remember.
No, bass is the lowest.
Okay, well she has to talk like this for the Xbox to understand her. it's kind of annoying.
That's great.
It won't ever get me on the first try.
Nope.
It'll get me on. Here's what. This is exactly.
Can you
what,
do like a fake American accent and it works? Can you say Xbox?
I had to develop a fake American accent over the years just for when I'm talking to computers and like if
Yeah.
I'm ordering food online. On over the phone or whatever, because people sometimes don't understand me.
That's racist.
And I do. Well, it doesn't matter who I'm talking to. It's
Okay, classist, whatever. It's all good.
And indeed, what I noticed is the same with Xbox. That sometimes if I fake an American accent, it's more likely to hear me.
Did I ever tell you the story of my English grandmother and the typewriters?
No.
She.
Okay. Now I want to hear it.
She is. She's English, and she moved here after World War II. And when my little sister
She's
wanted,
not like a. Oh, she's English. Okay.
she's English.
All right.
English.
Okay.
Not Welsh or Scottish or Irish or any of that business. English.
Okay.
And when my little sister asked for a typewriter for Christmas one year. She thought that was really cool. She was in probably 5th or 6th grade, so having a typewriter was a grown-up thing, and that was neat. So my grandmother tried to get her a typewriter for Christmas, and she kept calling to find out. She was looking for a specific model, knew which one she wanted to get her, and she kept calling the local department stores in Northeast Tennessee where we lived, and they couldn't understand her. So we're talking about people with kind of deep Southern mountain accents, and she finally just said, after the fifth failed attempt to get directed to the typewriter department, she said, "Typewriters! I need typewriters!" And she never lost her accent. So
Right.
It was really funny hearing my grandmother do.
Yeah,
bad Southern accent.
my English accent, which is somewhat diluted from living here for almost 20 years. When I go back home to England, it reasserts itself. It comes
Yeah,
back.
when your dad was here, it kind of cranked
Yeah,
up too.
your original accent never really fully goes away. It just kind of like gets buried under other
Repressed.
things. So with the Xbox, like the way that I talk to the Xbox, it's always the same. I repeat the command 3 times until it finally listens to me, and then I mutter "piece of shit" under my breath because I'm so annoyed at it when it finally responds. It's been very janky with the way it responds to things. That it doesn't turn off properly. That's been a bug that's come and gone. For a while when I was watching TV, I was afraid to like move my hands around because it would start the gesture. They
fixed that.
They finally
Yeah.
have allowed you to turn that off, which is great because I'm sure plenty of people complained about it. I love it. Playing it a lot. I'm enjoying using it a lot more than my PlayStation 4, which I've barely turned on since launch.
You heard it here first, guys. Microsoft wins.
But I think they've still got a long way to go.
It's
with
just
it.
because Titanfall came out, and that's a game that you're playing.
I have been playing a fair amount of Titanfall. I think both systems have the same problem right now. There still isn't very much to play on each system.
Once you played Need for Speed and Assassin's Creed on your platforms of choice, and maybe
Since
Dead Rising
launch,
3.
this is what happens, right? You got your launch titles, then there's kind of a quiet period, and then at E3 we'll start to see a bunch of titles. And come Christmas, come the holiday period, both systems I'm sure will have a lot of great games. But right now, there's not a lot to play. I think the situation is slightly better on Xbox than PlayStation, but there's not a ton of games on both systems.
And literally, I think that's just because of Titanfall. And Second Son, Infamous just came out this week.
Yeah, so
right?
Second Son just came out. That's kind of their answer to Titanfall. There's some good indie games on both sides. Xbox has, Peggle, Plants vs. Zombies, Garden Warfare.
I don't think I would call those indie games.
Well, but, the smaller games.
Okay.
Because PopCap's owned by EA.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Arcade games.
faceless multinational
Little arcade-style
corporations.
games. PS4's got Titanfall and Don't Starve and Gone Home and stuff like that.
PS4 doesn't have Titanfall.
Oh, sorry, Towerfall.
Okay.
Towerfall.
That's
sorry.
correct.
Easy to get those two mixed up.
Yeah, PS4 has a lot of great stuff that has been on PC for a while, and maybe the console.
Look, there's a
audiences get
lot
exposed
of great stuff coming. It's just I think it's going to be closer to the end of the year that those systems really start to assert themselves as game machines. And since the PlayStation 4 really only functions for me as a game machine, and I spend most of my time, and if you look at my friends list, most of my friends are using their Xbox One to watch TV,
HBO, YouTube.
play Xbox,
I mean, YouTube, Netflix, TV.
Netflix, TV, stuff
Yeah.
like that. And again, because and the fact that I've got Titanfall
Pinned.
was my first digital download major
Yeah.
game. I'm watching TV. Xbox go to Titanfall, play for Titanfall for a bit, Snap TV, whatever. It's great. That part of it actually
Wow.
is really great.
It's just like the commercial.
Yeah,
It's just like the
that
commercial.
part of the promise they did actually live up to.
Except they edit out all the waiting. Like when you pop up the friends menu from inside Titanfall or something like that, it always takes forever.
It's still really annoying the way everything is a separate app. It's not. I think they'll get there with updates. It took a while for the 360 to become as good as it was.
They promised that because of the virtual machine layout of those operating systems, that shit was all going to be seamless and fast.
Yeah, it
And
was
it
not.
is neither of
it
those
was not.
things.
It's annoying. Even with the snapping, it can be kind of annoying.
Yeah.
But I am enjoying Titanfall.
Titanfall's great. Everybody should play it if you have a PC or an Xbox One.
And you guys are playing on Xbox.
I'm playing.
Yeah.
I've played a little bit on both, but mostly Xbox.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. If you can get a group of friends, get like 5 friends together and play
Yeah.
and stay in a group,
We've had-
stay in a party of 6 and play with a group of 6, it's a ton of fun.
We've had a couple of really great. I mean, I haven't gotten to play as much as you have, but we've had a couple of really great nights.
And, for the longest time, I didn't play Call of Duty and Halo and games like that because you go into these multiplayer games and you just get murdered.
Yeah.
You can't compete
You're
with,
fodder.
with these kids that are playing 20 hours a day. And that's still an issue on Titanfall. There are always people that are going to be more committed to the game than you are. But they added a lot of things in to mitigate that. And so even if you're terrible, you can still have a good time, right? So there's bots to kill that are relatively easy. You can feel like you're getting something
Every
done.
3 minutes, you get a giant robot.
Yeah, you're never more than 3 minutes away from a Titan, but even for like 30 seconds, you can feel like you can do some damage. They did a lot of stuff to make it noob friendly.
It is pretty sad when you get a Titan and last like 8 seconds. And
Oh
then
my
you
god, I
to
have the
eject.
worst luck with that. I see other people get Titans and they run around for like 10 minutes mowing down pilots. The
don't think
second
it's a
I get a
luck
Titan,
thing.
I run smack into 3 other Titans.
Do you run away from them then?
Well, one of the tricks I learned was if you look down in the HUD in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see how many Titans each team has on the board at any
Yes.
given time.
You use
it's
the
a good
minimap.
idea to wait until there aren't many enemy Titans up.
The secret of every game with a minimap is to always be watching the minimap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't spend nearly enough time cloaked. I don't spend nearly enough time parkouring or rocket jump, doing the things that Titanfall is actually meant.
So
So
you basically
nothing
run
awesome
around.
happens.
I play it like I
you
play
run
Call
on
of
the-
Duty.
You
and
run
so
around
I-
on the ground with the robot chuds.
and I die a lot.
Yeah, you
Yes.
should get up high.
I'm basically an IMC grunt.
It is super important to stay high in
You
that
got to
game.
stay high.
Yeah.
in more ways than one, I would imagine. Will.
I bought one of the Xbox One stereo headset.
Oh, I want to hear about this because I really want. That's the thing I'm looking for.
So it's what it is it does something that the PS4 does out of the box.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, it's a
Yeah.
$30, $25, or $80 accessory, depending on whether you buy the one that comes with a headset or just the dongle itself. And it plugs into that socket on the bottom of the Xbox One controller.
That your current wired controller
Your
plug,
current,
your headset plugs.
So you know the headset that comes with the Xbox has
Yep.
like a little box that plugs in down there, and then
with
that
your volume
box,
controls on it and stuff.
Yeah, that box has volume controls and a mute button. I
Yep.
think is it.
Yes.
Which is like having a physical mute button with a light is incredibly useful.
It used
'cause
to
you
be.
can
It used to be here in line.
Yeah.
And now it's on the controller, which is easier.
So that lets you
'Cause you
glance
wanna mute
down
it all
and
the
see if
time.
you're muted. Yeah,
Yeah.
you stay muted unless you have something to say, and then you
Very
unmute and
useful.
mute. The stereo headset comes both the adapter and the stereo headset come with an adapter that replaces that box and
Right.
then has just a normal standard headset jack. So you can plug in your earbuds. You can plug in
if you've got your Turtle Beach
if
or
you,
whatever.
if you have a gaming headset
Yeah.
for your PC, you can plug
Plugs
that
right
in.
in.
If you have some sort of wireless thing, you can plug that in. It's all good.
or you can buy the full package that comes with Microsoft's own headset.
Yeah, that's $80.
Right.
when you have the dongle, that adds a couple of buttons. It lets you adjust the balance between game and voice. So there's a physical button to make the people in your party louder or to make the game louder,
Oh,
as well as the
that's
volume
good.
and mute controls.
I
All
like
that stuff
that.
is still there.
Okay.
And it works great.
Don't you think this should have been out of the box though?
Yes.
It should have been like the Sony
I think
solution where
that
you
should
can
have
plug
just been
anything
part
in.
of the controller, and you shouldn't have had to buy a fucking $25 accessory for it. The neat thing about it is that lets you bring your game audio through the controller port, which is fantastic for people like us when we have kids asleep late at night or
You
whatever.
want to play late at night, or even if you just want to watch a movie, doesn't it work with all the Xbox audio? Could you watch a movie and get the sound?
I haven't tried
Netflix
that. That's a
through
good
there?
question. I would assume so.
I would
yeah.
assume that you could.
Like menu sound comes through
It's like
there.
the Roku.
Yeah, kind of. You can do that through the app, right, or through the remote.
Yeah, that's a great feature, especially for oldies like us that, again, you've got families and kids, whatever, that, if you're staying up late, you don't want to bother other people.
So
that still doesn't solve the issue of your own voice when you're going, oh, don't kill me, oh, I'm dead again,
and
or
it
whatever.
actually makes it worse because when you're wearing headphones, you tend to be
speak
really
louder.
fucking loud.
Yeah.
So
It just needs like a motorcycle helmet that just insulates your whole head.
I took
With air conditioning.
Yeah.
I leave one of the ear cups just a little bit off so I can kind of hear myself.
Okay.
There's a couple of, it's a little bit janky. So the interesting thing about it is in order to use it, you have to update the firmware on the controller.
I've done that.
Okay. Then once you plug that thing in the first time, you also have to update the firmware on that thing.
What?
Yeah. So you basically
On the
plug
adapter?
On the adapter.
Does it send you when it detects
when you
does
plug it
say
in, it says,
need
"Hey,
to-
you need to update the firmware. Go do
Okay.
it. Here, press this button." So you do that. You go over there. It takes a little while. It's not too bad, but you plug a micro USB cable into the controller from the Xbox. No big deal.
Right.
The problem I have is that it crashes kind of a lot.
What crashes?
The audio dongle thing the whole controller actually crashes. So you reach a point where you have to unplug and replug the batteries in order to reboot the controller. Who the fuck would have thought this is ever a thing? And the sound drops for a while you're doing this, and you lose control in the game. So like you're on an awesome Titan killing spree,
And
you
then
see
your
somebody you can
controller
kill,
dies.
and then the fucking controller dies,
Well,
and you're
that's no
screaming. Taking the batteries out as quickly as possible. Drop the batteries. They roll under the couch. You have to fish them out, and then you're
Sounds
dead.
like they need another firmware update.
They need another firmware update.
How's the Microsoft headset?
I haven't used it enough to
have
say
you-
yet.
have you-
I've
so
been
have you just
mostly
been
using
using
my
your own-
A40.
Okay.
Yeah, it works great with the A40 and I tried my earbuds as well. The Microsoft headset is sounds good. I don't know what the microphone sounds like because it's like we should get on one night and I'll plug it in.
Yeah,
so
I
you
want
can
to
tell
hear.
me.
I've heard it's pretty good.
The A40 microphone's great. Everybody always says I sound wonderful.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I should just get the adapter because I have a couple of decent gaming headsets at home.
The adapter is kind of hard to find right now. So I wanted to test the adapter while it was still new, so I just bought the headset.
Okay.
I think buying the adapter if you already have a gaming headset is probably the right solution.
Right.
$25 seems eminently fair for that price. Even
Maybe I'll go to that Microsoft store at the Century
At the
Mall
mall?
and see if they
They
have
might.
it.
I don't know if they have it. It was out of stock everywhere I looked.
Yeah,
But that was also 2 weeks ago.
because it's probably
So-
people that have their own headsets just want to buy the adapter's all they need.
Yeah, and I'm sure Microsoft's trying to sell more headsets than just the adapter.
Right.
I hope that this ends up being a product that they actually support, and not like those wireless headset adapters that they used to sell in the 360 days that always sounded like shit.
Oh, those were terrible.
I hope that they fix the crashing problem pretty
yeah,
fast.
I mean they'll have to.
And it's worth mentioning, I've only tried this with one controller, so I should probably bust out my other controller and make sure that the problem is not just limited to, like, I don't have a bum controller. Mm-hmm. But anyway,
So that's something you've been
that's that.
testing.
Yeah, I have also spent some time with the PS4 controller on the PC.
Oh yeah. Now my first thought about that was it seems like that would not be ideal because most of the buttons on screen when you play a PC game are mapped for a 360 controller, right?
But I mean, you've played enough games with a controller that you know that the A button is the bottom one and the B button is up and right. Do you look down to see that the X button is the one on the left?
no, I know automatically where
Right.
the buttons are.
So then it doesn't matter.
I suppose it's just I'd rather it just be 1-to-1.
But it is 1-to-1. Square, whatever the one. I see. This is the problem. I don't know which one it is on the PlayStation because I think it's the square is on the left.
Yeah, you're not helping
And
your
the
own argument
triangle's
here.
on the top and the circle's on the right.
Yeah.
So the circle is B, the square is X,
But
and
the
the triangle is Y.
Xbox One controller is also compatible, right?
Not yet.
But it's going to be. They've announced
said that they're going to do a product, but it's not available yet, and you'll have to buy a dongle.
What do you? Well, if you had to
The
give one up,
PlayStation-
if you had to give one up now,
Uh-huh.
and just play all the games from now on one controller or the other, which one would you
Probably
rather
the
use?
PS4.
You like the PS4 controller better?
I mean, here's the thing that I like about the PS4 controller: the D-pad on it is fantastic
Yeah.
compared to the Xbox One. D-pad seems okay, but I haven't played any D-pad games on the Xbox One really yet.
I like both a lot. I think the PS4 controller is the biggest improvement that Sony's probably ever made in their gaming hardware
Well, so-
over the old one. It's incredible.
So the nice thing about the PS4 controller is you can use it wired. You can plug it in with a micro USB cable and it just works.
Right.
I mean, well, you have to install a driver. It's called DS4 Fix if you're looking for it. You install that driver, then you plug in the micro USB cable. It just works. If you have a compatible Bluetooth adapter, which is basically anything that has a Microsoft stack. So if you're running Windows 8 and when you add a Bluetooth device, it goes to a Metro screen instead of to a third-party app, you have the compatible Bluetooth controller. And then you can just use it wirelessly, which is great.
Yeah.
Because that means I can sit on the couch. You can turn on the trackpad, so you can use that as a mouse cursor.
Can you really?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Oh, that's great.
I think it has potential to be the Xbox 360 controller of this generation. But I think the problem with it is that the third-party drivers are kind of janky. They're getting much better. The latest RC release is quite good, but it has a tendency with the previous release to kind of like just lose the controller. It's not connected, and then you have to either reboot or unplug your Bluetooth thing and replug it, whatever. The buttons are good, the D-pad's good, the sticks are good. I think it's a great controller.
I like
I think the
them both
Xbox One
equally.
controller is really good too.
I actually like them both. It used to be back in the day, 360 PS3. If I had to decide which system I wanted to get a game on,
Always Xbox because of the controller.
I like well, there's other reasons too, but I preferred the 360 controller. Now it's much closer. Although I still slightly prefer the asymmetrical sticks on an Xbox controller.
I do like the top sticks, but the nice thing is having choice, right? It's
a much better choice than we used to have.
Right. And if you have a PC and you have a micro USB cable, which everybody has at this point, then you can try it out for free if you already have a DualShock controller.
Right.
The Xbox thing you're going to have to buy a dongle for, I'm sure. So that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, because they used to have that wireless receiver. I imagine there'll be
Well,
an
it's
Xbox.
Wi-Fi. It uses wireless direct.
There'll be an
Wi-Fi
Xbox
Direct
One
or
version
something.
of that.
Norm, what have you been testing?
You guys done talking about consoles?
We're done talking about console stuff. You want to talk
Thank
about the A7?
Goodness. Things I've been testing. I've been using the Roku 3 a lot lately.
The old Roku 3?
The Roku 3 is still
It's the
new.
current, but it's a year old at this point.
Sure.
Okay.
Got
Why-
rid of the WD because Roku running Plex and a special version of Plex, I believe it's called Plex RAR, lets me index all the movies I have on my Windows Home server,
The ones you ripped?
ones I ripped, and then pulls a ton of great metadata from Plex databases, downloads all the cover art with TV shows. It will do all the
Episode synopses and everything?
everything, ratings, Rotten Tomatoes. I can even I'll even search YouTube for trailers.
Does it do this
for
based
movies,
on file names?
based on file names?
Okay.
And whatever it can pull, whatever it can glean. It's not 100% accurate, but it is very close. I've only noticed about half a dozen out of several hundred
And you can
movies.
go in and fix them manually too, right?
I think you can go in and fix them manually. All
you-
you gotta do is run a Plex media server on the Windows Home server as a service, or just launch it every time you reboot it. And then for movie or TV shows, when you go into the TV show category, it'll like play the theme music for the show when you're browsing the episodes.
Did you have a hard time getting the... so that sounds a lot like what Boxy did with the Boxy box. It was great. I absolutely love it, but the problem is you have to run the Boxy box.
And then also Roku is like $100 and does
Boxy was
everything.
300
And does Netflix great, does everything but HBO on Comcast.
and Boxy was a kind of a power hog too.
Yes, and Roku is super lightweight.
So the only problem with was it hard getting the Plex server to run as a service on your home server?
I can't even run it as a service. I have to run it. I have to restart it every time.
So do you have
Besides remote
Windows
desktop in.
reboot? Okay, so you don't have it log in automatically. You just have to do that. That sucks.
Yeah, it doesn't reboot unless there's a power outage.
Right.
So
I'm a big fan of Plex. I think it's really a neat piece of software.
if you buy a Roku, install Plex. You won't regret it.
Can you just get that from the store, or do you have to like jailbreak it or something?
You can get it from the store.
Okay. What was the camera you took to South by?
And then this podcast is going on Thursday, so we should have a review of the Sony A7 full-frame mirrorless camera. I took to South by, took a ton of photos South by. We have a video review of it. It's a camera that I like, but I wouldn't buy because it's $1,700, and I'm not in the market for a new full frame camera right now.
You already have a nice full frame camera.
But like Gary, the next camera that I told you to buy several years ago.
Yeah, the NEX.
Yeah.
We still get a lot of great use out of it.
Yeah,
We still
exactly.
love that camera. It takes
Yes,
great pictures.
There's a high end version of that type of camera now that Sony makes that is basically like the image quality of my big Canon camera, but in that small form factor.
Oh, okay.
But it's fairly expensive. Other things, Logitech Harmony has a new keyboard out.
I thought Harmony they were winding that all up.
No, they're still going strong.
The remotes, though, when they saying they were getting out of that business.
Still
They said they were getting out of it and then changed their mind. They were trying to sell it,
totally in the business.
and then they came back. Which
So-
remote, Norm?
it's a keyboard.
It's a keyboard?
It's a keyboard that taps into Harmony, but it does not work well with existing Harmonies, meaning that.
I don't understand what a
Why would you
keyboard
want
that
a- why
taps
would you
into
want a
Harmony
Harmony
is
keyboard?
for.
So
Yeah.
there are shortcuts on the top that let you, and Oculus actually had this keyboard when we did the demo. I noticed there are a top row of shortcuts to launch your activities. The way the Harmony system works is that you program it in the software, and you have to use an app, smartphone app, to program this one. So it knows
Really? You
that
can't even use the web interface?
can't use the web interface.
Oh, that's
you
dumb.
You got to use a smartphone app.
What if you don't have a smartphone?
Probably not for you.
Are you sure you can't use the web interface?
This new one, you have to use the web app.
Oh,
Or you have to use the smartphone app.
Fucking lame.
So it's based on activities. So you tell the remote that for playing games, it'll turn on your receiver, your TV, and your Xbox. For watching movies, it'll turn off your Xbox, change the receiver to your Roku.
Yeah, I mean that's what a Harmony does. My question is,
Well,
why do you need
Norm's
a whole
explaining
keyboard?
it.
So-
So the
and
benefit
then-
is that it makes the TV it
Yes.
makes your TV stuff accessible to people who don't necessarily
Yeah, it's
understand.
really great when like when you have to like hand control over to someone that doesn't know you're ridiculous. Back in the day, it used to be just the TV. Now when it's like when
Right.
you've got like 6 different devices and a receiver, it's like everything has to be in the right input.
It means when my dad
remember
comes
you used
to town,
we
he
used to
can
have to
watch
like write
the
out all
Today
the
Show.
instructions. Like if you want to watch TV, set it to this, that, press this button,
Yeah.
and people will still get.
They'll fuck your
confused.
shit all up.
But the Harmony, you press one button and it just does everything. It just switches
Right.
it all over seamlessly.
So the worst thing with using these
theoretically,
remotes
it doesn't always get it right.
is typing in names of movies in things like the Roku or Xbox.
Okay.
And so that's why this is a keyboard.
But who wants? How big is it? Like
Man,
it's not like a full size keyboard.
It's like a medium-sized keyboard.
This seems like the kind of thing that you don't really need.
You don't really need it unless it also comes with 2 USB dongles. So if you have HTPC, it will be your keyboard for your HTPC also.
So hold on, why are there 2 USB dongles?
So you can plug it into your Xbox One and your PC.
Oh, it's for your Xbox One.
Yeah, because you need a dongle for your Xbox.
Do you have
One.
an Xbox One now?
Nope.
Oh,
Or your Xbox.
okay.
You're just not really interested in games these days, are you?
On PC, I've played
You play some
games.
PC games?
Yeah. Was in
He's
Nidhogg.
playing the Dotas.
Not playing.
Oh, you're
Dotas.
playing those? The
Yeah.
MOBAs?
It's not really a thing, the MOBA. Anything else you've been testing, Mr. Chan?
We got something cool in that we can't talk about.
Can't talk about it. Nice tease, though.
It might be drone related,
That's true.
and that's all we can say about it.
I'm testing a stylus. I don't think that's worth talking about yet.
I got the new Romo in
The
the
smartphone robot that I tested 2 years ago?
Yep,
For iOS devices?
for iOS devices only.
Okay.
Stuff to look forward to on Tesla.com.
Anything else, Gary? Any good baby stuff?
Like I said, after buying the Xbox One and the PS4 at Christmas, I kind of said like that's it now for like
No
frivolous purchases. The next big ticket item I bought since then was just last week. I ordered the Oculus Dev Kit 2.
I bought a new video card after the consoles.
But I haven't really bought anything since then, and I barely had time to. Again, you know what it's like when you got a little kid running around. There's no time
Yeah.
to do anything anymore.
I played one game of Spelunky at night.
Yeah, I'm just
basically.
watching my movie and game backlog just getting bigger and bigger, and who has time to do this stuff?
Okay, well, let's play some music. We'll take a question.
Oh,
or
with the
two.
Sancerre also. I guess we did talk about that.
We talked
already.
about the
what?
Sancerre.
Oh, the
I got my
the
replacement
sous vide?
Sancerre.
What have you cooked so far? Just the ribs? A couple
Ribs
steaks?
and steaks and eggs.
I've done eggs. I've done a couple of steaks. I've done some chicken breasts.
That is something I'm interested in.
I feel like I need to spend more time with it. I want to do something that's going to take like 3 days to cook, and before I make any judgments. But I am strongly bullish on it from what I've seen so far. I think it's a pretty nice piece of hardware. I'm gonna play some music. We'll take a couple of questions, and then we'll call it a show. And I should have played this music instead.
Emails?
Well, but we do the other one.
Email.
'Cause it's, we don't do emails. We do
Emails?
No.
Questions?
Boom.
If you have a question for This Is Only a Test, the email address is podcast@tested.com. Please keep your questions short. If you record an audio question, which we prefer, no one ever sends audio questions anymore because apparently they're a pain in the ass. But if you have a question, you can send it. Keep it short. We'll play it on the air. Here is our first question. It is from Joshua. I'm asking, I'm a podcast junkie. I'm a librarian. There's a lot of downtime at my job, which I like to fill with podcasts. I listen on my Android phone, iPad, and Windows PC, depending on where I am. I'm asking if you guys know of a client that is cross-platform and updates your listening history across your devices. I'm envisioning a client where maybe I have to sign in with an account on each device that automatically downloads the latest episode of a subscribed feed across devices, automatically deletes a show from all devices when fully listened to, and bookmarks your place in the middle of a partially listened podcast. This is the first worldiest of first world problems, and maybe this client doesn't exist, but I feel like I waste way too much of my valuable time keeping up with all three devices, and I can't be the only one. Okay, so there's two solutions here.
That's a good question, and it seems like there would be a solution for that.
There's this thing called Stitcher. It is a podcast streaming service. Basically, instead like traditionally podcasts, your client hits an RSS feed. The RSS feed says, hey, here's the file. It's new. Go download it. Your client downloads it. It lives on your phone or whatever from that point. And then you listen to it when you want. What Stitcher does is they just download the file once and they stream it out from their servers to people, just like Rdio or Spotify or iTunes Music or Pandora or something like that. They do all the stuff that you want. They have multi-platform clients. That's pretty much it. They'll sync listening position.
That sounds like the answer.
It sounds pretty good. Not every podcast is on Stitcher because you have to agree to be on Stitcher. For example, this podcast is on Stitcher. Still Untitled isn't, because we agreed to put this on when we were still Whiskey Media, and like our current employers don't like the terms of the Stitcher agreement, so we haven't done that.
All right. So it could be that the podcast you like
It could
isn't
be
available.
Not every podcast is available on Stitcher.
Right. Is this seems like it would be easier if you just live inside one ecosystem?
Yeah, if you are an Mac/iOS user, get Downcast. You're good, done. You can get it on Mac, you can get it on iPad, you can get it on iPhone. You'll spend $20 all told,
Right.
And it's great.
And is that equally true of Windows and Android?
I don't know what the podcast client situation is on Android, Norm. Do you?
Mine's
I know
terrible.
You're not. Yeah, the ones that I used when I was using Android stuff were
What do you
were
use?
bad across the board.
Let me show you. I use Beyond Pod.
Do you like it?
It's okay.
Okay. The other possibility, and this is, I'm going to get crazy here, just use your phone. Make the phone the thing on which you listen to podcasts, because you're going to have that with you
Yeah, it'll be
all
with
the
you
time.
everywhere.
You're listening to it on the computer. When you're sitting in front of the computer, just plug your headphones in from the phone
Just like
instead of the computer.
just like having your little transistor radio back in the day.
Exactly. The phone is the transistor radio of our time.
Get battery.
And it's just a podcast, so it's not like
Yeah.
listening to music where you feel like you need like the highest fidelity.
I
know.
feel like, we present every podcast in the highest fidelity possible.
I'm just saying that I don't like. I would listen to a podcast through just the crappy speakers on my phone.
Oh, yeah.
But I wouldn't want to listen to music that way.
It depends on the music. What if it's music you don't really like very much? What if it's kid music?
Why would I be listening to it in the first place?
Well, your kid likes to listen to Casper Baby Pants.
no, my kid's graduated now. She's all into Debbie Gibson and Madonna.
Wow.
Yeah, which is great because I like those things
You
too.
like Debbie Gibson and Madonna.
I liked Debbie Gibson when I was a kid,
What-
when
how
she
do-
was actually in the charts.
How do you feel about Tiffany?
I liked Tiffany as well, but I preferred Debbie Gibson.
Interesting.
Oh,
I was
no.
more on the Tiffany side of that.
I felt personally at the time that Only in My Dreams was superior to I Think We're Alone Now. They're both very good.
Well, I think you're
and
alone now.
this was kind of like the Blur versus Oasis of its day.
Only in Your Dreams, Only in My Dreams.
Only in My Dreams.
was an original song, and I Think You're Alone Now
That's
is
a remake.
of a 60s.
But that doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does.
Anyway, I bought Only in My Dreams as a 7-inch vinyl single.
Wow.
Whatever year it was that it came out in the 1980s.
Is a 7-inch vinyl single like a 45?
Yeah, 7 inches
That's
of
what
40.
that's what we
7
call 'em
inches.
here
7 inches of
in
45.
America. It's a 45.
Yeah,
Which is the number of RPMs you said it to
a
turn
7-inch
at,
is a single, and 12
Yeah,
inches
understood.
is a full LP.
I'd never heard it called a 7-inch before. We always just called them 45s.
And it's just a dying nomenclature. Like no one thinks about this stuff
I
anymore.
think they probably do. I bet Norm knows more about vinyl than you and I do at this
he
point.
probably does.
I have
Yeah.
two
Two
players at home.
vinyls? Oh, 2 record players.
Two record players at home.
Yeah.
Do
Yes.
you like to listen to music on vinyl?
Sometimes my housemates do.
Remember when we were cleaning out the closet in the old place, and you were like, "Hey, do you want these record players?" And I was like, "No." And then I came home, and my wife was like, "Hey, what about those record players?"
I went through a period.
I had to pay. I paid
thought I was
$150
gonna do this.
to get new to fix
Needles?
them up.
I
needles,
had this ridiculous idea that I was going to start listening to. This happened a few years ago because the Book of Eli
Yeah.
soundtrack, they released it as a vinyl LP as a
So
special
you got
edition.
one free record.
So I got the record. I didn't get
Yeah.
it free. I had to buy it, but
Oh.
I got it. And then I started going to Goodwill stores and buying like cheap, because there's a ton of cheap record albums in Goodwill stores. I got like some Andy Williams and just some retro. I was like, this will be
Yeah.
fun. I bought a cheap turntable just to see if I would like it. Plugged it into into my receiver because you've got a sound system ready to go. It makes
Yeah.
it easy. And then I forgot just how back in the day, like picking up the needle, having to place it, and like
I love that part.
And having
That's
to,
the best
and
part.
having to handle the records really delicately. It's just like it seems very primitive to me now. And when you look like the way we listen to music now, it's so easy. that
Xbox. Play Debbie Gibson.
Having to flip the B side and blah
Still
blah
feels
blah.
more reliable than putting a CD in.
No, but who does that anymore either?
No one. I haven't used a CD player.
My wife
And
bought-
and a CD, if you want to get to the next track, it would take you right there. In the old days, you had to pick up the needle
And you have to eyeball it.
find that little groove that was the start of the next track. Most of the people listening to this don't even know what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
they do. They're all hipsters.
But yeah, so Debbie Gibson and Madonna are very popular. I think the kid is graduating out of the songs that are just for little kids and is now actually listening to like legit pop music.
So-
we found an 80s dance music station on iTunes Radio, and that was a big hit.
So the answer then is Stitcher, or alternately, just use your iPhone.
Yeah. Or just listen to Debbie Gibson.
Oh, sorry, Android phone. Just use your iPad then, because then your battery life will be fine. But then you have to carry your iPad with you everywhere.
So he has an Android phone,
Yeah.
a Windows PC,
Yep.
and an iPad.
That's what I
Yeah.
have.
So he's like deliberately making
That's
it
what I
difficult.
have.
Like, I don't know how you can
Norm,
live
did
such-
you send this letter in?
I don't
Are you
know-
Joshua?
I don't know how you can live such a fragmented lifestyle.
No, it's great
Why?
What's great about it?
because I use every device for very specific things.
How do you get pictures from your phone onto your iPad?
Why do I need pictures from my phone? The camera on this is shitty. Why do I want pictures?
So what do you
Also, the Google Plus app.
But that's going to make him even shittier.
No, it doesn't.
Really?
It's the full.
I
But
thought
aren't
it
there
compresses
times?
more.
Aren't there times when you want to get things back and forth between your devices, and it's harder because they're all
email,
different things?
Dropbox. They all have Dropbox.
I
That sounds like
suppose.
such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah. I just like the machine to think for me.
I like all my iCloud tab syncing, and
That shit never works.
I mean, Chrome
Works
tab
for me.
syncing works.
Chrome tab syncing works great.
Yeah,
I like
Chrome
my
on all of them.
AirPlay.
I'd have to use Safari on my desktop for that to be useful.
I use Safari, so it's all good.
We have another question if you'd like to move on, or we can keep talking about this. This is good. Andrew writes, Will Smith. A few years back, I was a captioning coordinator at WGPH in Boston, the public television station that pioneered closed captioning back in the 70s and also produces a majority of the original content aired on PBS, including Antiques Roadshow, Frontline, and The American Experience. Captioning is now a tiny part of WGBH, and they still caption a grip of shows, both for public and network television. As a coordinator, I just caddied for the stenographers. They were the talent, he quoted talent, of the operation and had egos and eccentricities to match. Oh, this is great. A few weeks ago, you weren't here, but a few weeks ago, we were speculating on like the fact that there is a top level performance for stenographers who do like closed captioning type. And like, we're trying to figure out what the Super Bowl of being a TV closed captioning stenographer was. That might've been on an Adam podcast. It was. Okay. I watched our best steno write 300 words a minute with 99% accuracy and power through a 5-hour Oscar broadcast without a break. She was superhuman and she knew it. She's since left for more money elsewhere. As for me, I just connected stenographers with broadcasting feeds and satellites, all using the 9800 baud modems, dial-up modems, and Windows 95 PCs that are still the standard across the stenography industry. When shows were done, I'd clean up the stenographer's script so they'd be clean for reruns. When a show reran, I'd sit there and press F11 to send each line across the modem as it was said so that they didn't have to pay a real stenographer for a show that had already been written. Every line you see on non-scripted TV is written and or sent by a human being, usually in real time, which means that if the captions are lagging, it probably means someone had to pee or reply to a text message or something. Holler if you're curious about anything else. I design newspaper infographics these days, but I still have friends on the inside.
Cool.
That's interesting
Andrew.
to know.
Yeah.
Apparently, the BBC recently has tried to switch over to an automated system for closed captioning, and it's working about as well as you would expect. It's leading to like
Siri,
daily
Connect, or
daily
Google Now.
hilarious misspellings and
YouTube.
misconstructions
Dude.
of what's actually been said.
I went through. We talked about hearing loss on a episode of Still Untitled a few weeks ago, and as people who had hearing loss understandably requested that we fix the YouTube automatically generated closed captions, and there were like ethnic slurs. There was horrible
It
shit
can
in
be
the closed
bad.
captions that none of us said. Just to be clear, I mean it was bad. So yeah, that's our closed captioning story for this week. That'll do it for mail. If you have an email, it's podcast@tested.com. Keep it short. Keep it interesting. We love to hear insider information on stuff. That's great. Today's outro. Oh, hold on. Plugs. Gary, where can people find you on the internet? What are you working on these days?
So to answer your first question, I can be found at Gary Whitta, GaryWhitta,
Okay.
Twitter. I just passed for 30,000 followers.
Hey, congratulations.
Yesterday. That was
a big milestone.
That was a little bit.
Does it
milestone.
bother you that you can't see the individual number of followers, only rounded to nearest 100?
Really?
Mine don't do that.
Yeah, mine shows me the
On
current
the
number.
website doesn't do that. Tweetbot tells you the exact number.
Oh,
I use
did-
Tweetbot.
Really use Tweetbot?
I like
oh yeah,
Tweetbot.
I thought you meant. You said Tweetbot, and I thought you meant TweetDeck.
No, Tweetbot.
Tweetbot's
I
great.
used to use TweetDeck back in the day.
Love Tweetbot.
Tweetbot is my favorite Twitter client.
It's my favorite Twitter client too.
I like it too. When mostly you see people complaining about Twitter, it's because they're using the website and they're constantly retooling the website and adding new features that people
Yeah.
don't like or aren't used to or whatever. And the
Not
official
available
Twitter
on
app
Android.
has the same problems as
No,
well.
Tweetbot is an
What are
iOS
you using on
application.
Android?
Twitter.
Just the official Twitter app?
I couldn't find replies in the official Twitter app when I had it on my Nexus the other day. Made me sad. Took me a
So,
while.
so I'm there on Twitter. I guess that's it. What am I working on? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So part of the reason why I wasn't able to come in recently, I've been really busy. I just finished writing a book that I'm excited about, and hopefully that will come out at some point.
Do you want to talk about it at all
I
now or not?
I
really
mean, I
yet?
can't really talk about it in any
Okay.
detail other than
Is it genre fiction?
yeah, it's like a fantasy, kind of
Like
Dark
like-
Ages fantasy, Game of Thronesy,
like
kind of
swords and
thing.
elves and stuff,
It
or
has,
more
like,
kind of dragons.
There are some
and King
swords
Arthur?
in it, and there's magic and stuff like
Okay.
that. It's cool. I always
Cool.
wanted to kind of write something in that world. And I wanted to see if I could write a book. Like, screenwriting is kind of my day job. That's kind of my first language. I wanted to see if I
Yeah.
could write like a prose novel.
Was it-
It was really fun to write.
Was it harder writing the book, or was it just kind of fun because you were writing it for yourself and not really for?
It was hard. It was harder in the sense that it was kind of almost like learning a new language, but it was much more liberating than writing a screenplay for a couple of reasons. First of all, you can like really just like indulge yourself and go off in like into interior monologues and just have fun with the characters in a way that with a screenplay you have to like constantly keep things moving. But you can kind of dwell a little bit more in a novel and just like do character building chapters and do backstory and things that just
things that would plot in the movie.
yeah. And that's part of the reason I wrote it. I had a story that I wanted to write, and my first instinct was, well, it should be a movie because that's what I do. But I was like, no, the way I wanted to tell it, it would be I'd have to do too much gymnastics to get it to work as a movie script right away. So I wrote it this way first. So that was fun.
Okay.
And then the other thing that was really cool is, this is actually kind of going, like, this is kind of like a tech thing we can talk about, is as a screenwriter, the problem with writing a screenplay, even when you're someone that's like professionally working in the business like me, a lot of the stuff that you write on spec, you don't necessarily
Explain what spec is.
So a spec is you basically write something speculatively, which is to say this is how the Book of Eli was created. No one asks you or commissions you or hires you to write something. You have your own idea and you gamble your own time and effort for however long it takes to write a script, in a room on your own. And when the product is finished, you take it out and try to sell it. That's how Eli started, and we were fortunate to sell it and have it be made.
And somebody who was awesome made it, and it turned out great.
After
Yeah.
Earth was a different experience where that was an idea that someone else had, and I was hired to help write it. So that's the majority. That's the majority of movies that get made.
And so most of the time, somebody says, I'm going to pull something out of my ear here. I want to make The Social Network meets Wag the Dog.
Well, sometimes it's an idea. Like in the case of After Earth, Will had an idea, and he wanted a writer to help develop it. So I got involved.
Okay.
And helped in the early stages of creating what the story for that movie was. But that's another rare case. And spec scripts, like someone just writing a script, that does still happen. But it's not like it used to be back in the day. The majority of movies getting made now are things that are based on other things, like
Iron Man.
whether it be Iron Man or the Hunger Games
Right.
or the Lego movie. It's all stuff that is there's an argument to be made that
There's existing audiences.
It's worth
for
spending
something,
$100 million
and,
making this because we're reasonably confident people will know what this thing is and they'll go see it.
Okay.
Whereas taking a gamble on an original thing, like whether it be Eli or After Earth or Inception, any movie that's like an original thing. That's why
Batman.
That's why those movies usually have Batman. Right?
Who the fuck-
Who knew what that was? It just came out of
crime-fighting
nowhere.
billionaire?
Next thing you know, it's comic books, and they created a whole industry out of that movie. It's
fucking
amazing.
Stupid.
So the point I was making was, when you write a movie like that on spec,
Mm-hmm.
you have no way of knowing if your work's ever going to be seen by anyone. Because when you write a movie script, you're not actually creating a finished product. You can say you have a finished script, but that's what you created is not intended for the general public to consume. You don't publish that and then have people read the screenplay. It can be interesting to read screenplays, but even a finished screenplay is only one piece of a final product.
It's the framework that the house is built around.
Directors and actors and producers and special effects people then come along and use that as the blueprint to create the finished product, the actual film that you would then go and see. And to go from a finished, and having done this myself, I know how difficult it is, to go from a finished script to selling the movie, casting the movie, producing the movie, getting it financed, and everything you have to go through to get it into theaters.
Mm-hmm.
The finished screenplay is not the finish line. That's the starting line. And there's a million different things that can go wrong along the way. Like Eli there were 5 or 6 times when it was almost dead. It was never going to get made.
Well, and you've worked on a bunch of stuff that you worked a lot on,
Right.
and then it just stopped for one reason.
Yes,
or another.
and as a screenwriter, most working screenwriters will tell you the same thing. 90% of the stuff that I've worked on and written has never been and probably will never be seen.
Yeah.
Because that's just the nature of the business. You write the script, but then there's a million other things that have to go right, and something along the way will probably go wrong before it becomes a finished film.
Yeah.
So the point being, it's very liberating to write a novel, because when you finish that actually, no one else has to come along now and turn it into something else for people to consume. That's the finished product.
Well, I mean, there'll be editors and all. So depending on which way you go.
An editor would go through
Yeah.
it, but I can't be fired and rewritten.
Right.
I've worked on a lot
That's
of
your
movies.
thing.
I've worked on many movies. Yeah, I'm specialized in getting fired and rewritten
no,
by
I
other
meant
people.
the book is your thing, but I mean, the other thing's true too, I guess.
Well, and again, that's true of most writers, most screenwriters. And I often tell people when I talk about writing, you think about it, it's unique to screenwriting. It's a really horrible, you can't imagine a situation where a publisher would say, oh, okay, well, Stephen King's just turned his new manuscript in. We really like it, but we don't like the third act. So we're going to hire John Grisham to come in and rewrite the third act, right? So you're laughing because it's preposterous, right?
But it happens all the time in movies.
That is the standard practice in Hollywood.
I mean, how many movies have you seen in the last 10 years that had one screenwriter attached to them? It's like Tarantino stuff and stuff by auteur.
And a lot of ghostwriters.
Right.
Yeah, and even on movies that have only one credited writer, there usually is someone else that did some work on the movie but didn't get credit for
but
it.
I mean, we've talked to people, I can't remember if this is on or off the record, so I won't name names, but who said explicitly that they get called in all the time to look at third acts and figure out how to fix something that's broken
and
or
those
whatever.
people who are often called script doctors or closers or polishers or whatever, and I get offered this kind of work. I usually turn it down because it's not the kind of work that I find interesting, but they say, like, we think the script is basically okay, but like we need you to fix this part of it or fix the ending or whatever,
or this relationship's no good, or
and unless you completely rewrite the script, you're probably not going to get any credit for it, because the Writers Guild has very strict rules about which writers are allowed to be credited on a film. You have to be able to show you've done a certain amount of work towards the finished product. If you come in and just like fix a bit of dialogue or whatever, you're not going to get credit. But those people that can take a script, like a movie's got to shoot in 6 weeks from now, like everything's locked in, they can't push the date back, they've got to go, but they're still not happy with the script. Some film companies often get themselves into that kind of a jam. Someone can come along who specializes in this kind of work. I will fix your script in 3 weeks and get it where it needs to be. Those people can earn up to like $250,000 a week doing that kind of work, and that money's worth it to the studio because that saves their project. I think it was a bigger undertaking, but like Damon Lindelof, right, came in and basically saved World War Z. That movie was broken.
He talking about that in the talking room with Adam.
Right, and that kind of the ability to do that, to kind
probably.
of turn a broken project around and figure out what's wrong with it and execute it, that's worth a lot of money to film studios. Anyway, this is you can do a whole other podcast on this, but anyway, the point being that an editor will go through my book and give me notes to help polish it up and improve it, but no one can fire me.
Yeah.
And have another writer come in, and that's actually quite nice for me. That's not
It's
what
a
I'm
refreshing
used to.
change of pace.
And I don't have to worry about the book being turned into something that it isn't. Again, most writers, myself included, have had that experience where you work on a movie and it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to. But with this one, I know that whatever reaches the market, I'll be able to say, well, this is my work and my work alone, and I can't hide behind anyone else for excuses for why it wasn't good or bad, or if you like it, I can take all the credit for it without feeling guilty or whatever. And here's the other thing I wanted to point out. The thing that I love about living in this age is that I know for a fact that it will find, one way or another, whether people like it or not, I know that I will be able to get it in front of an audience. Again, with a movie,
Right.
you need millions of dollars and a whole army of people to come in and turn it into a movie. It used to be equally true in a way of book publishing.
It was
because
hard to get a book published.
You used to have two alternatives. One was to find a publisher, and that's obviously very difficult to do because a publisher has to make a major investment in manufacturing and distributing and publishing and marketing your book.
They have a limited schedule of books that they release every year, so you have to
There's only
slot
so
into
many
that
slots,
somewhere.
and it's very
Yeah.
difficult. What used to fill in the other end of that market is what they used to call vanity publishing, right? Where you would basically pay a company, and these were all essentially scams.
Yeah.
They called it vanity publishing because it appealed to the vanity of the author who just wanted to see a finished published book with their name on it, even
Right.
though probably they only ever made 100 copies, and you probably paid
And you
more,
paid for
and
all
you
of
lost
them.
money on the
Yeah.
deal. Like, because they don't really market them. That industry's basically gone away now because the Amazon and Kindle, and there's a new genuine digital self-publishing revolution that's come along that has led to a whole new army of people like Hugh Howey.
Yeah.
And E.L. James, who created 50 Shades of Grey. But whether you like that book or not, it was a big self-publishing success story. And this is now a legitimate way to get published.
This all comes back to the Kickstarter thing, right? Like the self-publishing, the ability to self-publish and then market a book yourself is revolutionary. The ability to go out and say, hey, I have an idea for something, I want to make it into a product,
Right.
is probably the best thing that's happened in the last 10 years for innovation and technology.
So Hugh
Barriers to
Howey,
entry.
who wrote people who may not know the name, wrote the Wool series of books.
He wrote, Wool, Silo, and Dust.
No,
Shift and
Wool,
Dust.
Shift and Dust. And he has a new one out called In the Sand. He's a guy, I actually admire Hugh Howey a lot, both as an author because I think he writes really good stuff. But he was a guy that helped create this whole new model. He published his stuff on Amazon, was hugely successful with it. As Ridley Scott, making the movie version of it.
But I mean,
he subsequently did sign a big print deal with a
Yes.
major publisher. But he's since gone into a lot of the nitty gritty and the mathematics and the economics of self-publishing versus what he calls legacy publishing, which is like doing a deal
Random
like
House.
a Random
Yeah.
House or whoever.
Houghton Mifflin.
Not
Making the
writing.
argument that even if you did have an offer from a major publisher, you might actually do better for yourself retaining the rights and doing it all yourself. There are ups and downs to either side.
Well, and I mean, if you look at something like a book franchise, had he gotten a first look deal with Random House, it's entirely unclear whether he would have been able to retain movie rights or something like that.
No, he
for
would
that
have.
movie. He would have.
He would have retained the movie rights.
Okay.
You don't when they buy they don't
buy the
but they
franchise.
do buy the copyright to the
the
book
book,
for
yeah.
something like 70 years or some ridiculous amount of time, and however much they choose to pay you don't know. With Amazon, it's a fairly transparent process. You know exactly how many are sold,
Yeah.
exactly what your share of each book is, and he's been very successful with that. It may not be for everyone, but and again, if you've got a legitimate publishing deal on the table, that's probably a good way to go. The argument, the point I'm making is that for a whole new generation of people that, for whatever reason, either because they're not good enough or because maybe they do have the next
or
great,
maybe they don't have the people skills to get in front of the
maybe
people
they
the
do have the
publisher
next
has.
great American novel and
Yeah.
just they can't get anyone to take notice of it. There is a way, and that could still disappear into the morass of there's a million bad books out there on Amazon Kindle right now. But sometimes the cream, like Wool, floats to the top.
There's a million anecdotes about fledgling authors who send hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of manuscripts to publishers before it finally gets noticed, and then it turns out that was Stephen King, or it's an Andy. What was the guy who used to do the rest of the story? He died.
Andy Rooney?
No, that's 60 Minutes.
Paul Harvey.
Paul Harvey. Thanks. Yeah, it's like a Paul Harvey story, right? But I mean, this lets them bypass that and be popular on their own terms.
So all coming back around to answer your question, this was a fun experience for me because again, when I write a movie script, I know I go into that undertaking knowing that the chances, the likelihood of this thing being produced and seen by anyone and in a way that resembles what I originally wrote and in a way it's something I can be proud of is actually the least likely of all scenarios.
It's 100% chance that it's going to be
It
out.
happened with Eli, and I'm immensely, gratified for that. But it's very, very, very rare. Whereas so my point being that even if I can't find a publisher for this book, and
Or decide not
I
to
think there's
take
a good
a
chance that I'll be able to find.
publisher.
I think it's pretty decent. I think I'll find a publisher. But even if not, I will be able to get it out into the Amazon Kindle world, and some people will read it, and that's good enough for me.
That's great.
So that's what I've been mostly doing. And then I've got some new film and TV work that's going to start soon that will probably take me away from the podcast again for a while. But I'm gonna try and make more of an effort to come in because I've enjoyed myself today.
It's good.
Yeah.
We're
good.
not as horrible as we made out to be.
Yeah, I'd kind of forgotten what it was actually like being here. My last real memory was Oktobercast, which I always hate doing.
Yeah.
So
Fuck the kids.
Soured you on the podcast.
Fuck the
for half a year.
doctors. Well, we were talking about doing an Oktobercast again in April. It's been 6 months.
No, we weren't.
Norman Chan, anything for you? We have a bunch of videos from GDC on the site.
It's all good.
Yeah. I'm going to play the outro. This one is from 333.
Was that fake outtakes or
No, we have fake outtakes to go. We
Okay.
play the outro, and then we do fake outtakes.
All right.
Here's the outro.
Hi there, I didn't see you. So I'm not going to say it's the big thing this week, but
I haven't touched one yet.
would you like to touch one?
Sure.
I don't even know what that's from.
Probably the iPhone.
Maybe. I learned something fascinating about you yesterday, Gary.
Yeah, what's that?
Until last night, you had never seen Spaceballs.
No, the night
What?
before last.
Okay. Until this week, you had never seen Spaceballs.
Yeah, I'd never seen Spaceballs.
What the fuck is wrong with you, man?
Wait. Everyone has holes.
You've never seen The Rocketeer, so don't even start.
The Rocketeer wasn't available on DVD. That's not my fault.
It's been out, but it's been out in
Fucking
a special
Buena
edition
Vista.
Blu-ray for about 6 months or a year now.
Really?
Yeah, you have no
very
excuse.
uncomfortable.
Get it up
You've
on
never
Amazon.
you've never
I-
seen
listen to
Rocky.
me. I want you to
I
get.
have never seen
I
Rocky.
want you to punch
Will's
into
never
Amazon.
seen Rocky.
What?
I've never seen Rocky. That's true.
So how are you even talking to me about Spaceballs? You should be embarrassed. You should be ashamed of yourself. This has backfired on you spectacularly.
If you don't know anything, if you don't know nothing about me, it's that I'm ordering the Blu-ray for Rocketeer right now.
Yes, thank you. I want you to do the one click and everything while we're talking.
I have to sign in to do the one click.
And there's a new 4K remaster of Rocky as well that you should get.
fucking 4K remasters are the biggest
I know.
bullshit
I
in
know
the
it's
world.
not
Don't
really.
fucking
I know
sell it
it's
as
not
that.
really 4K, but there's a new release of Rocky that you can.
You're better
get.
than that, Gary Whitta.
The 4K remaster just tells you have to buy it again later.
I just spent $17 because of you. Thanks.
But you're not going to regret it though. It's such a great movie. I was talking to a couple of people recently about doing a Rocketeer podcast where we just talk about the
Wow.
Rocketeer every week forever.
Terry O'Quinn.
If you need a place to host that, we can totally do that.
My personal favorite portrayal of Howard Hughes in any movie.
Oh, right.
Terry O'Quinn.
What do you mean? Oh, right.
I
You
might
haven't
have seen
the
that in
film?
theaters when I think about it.
Has
It was
one
a
of the
long
best
time
last
ago.
lines when Timothy Dalton, right, plays the villain.
He plays the villain.
the Nazi.
Yeah.
And the famous last line, and he crashes into the Hollywood sign.
Right. What was his last line?
Oh God, I forget now.
The list of recommendations based on this order are great.
It's great
The
because
Shadow,
he has so much
Vertigo, Rear Window,
That was the ultimate
Newsies,
role.
and Roger
for,
Rabbit.
For Timothy Dalton, like that's a dream role for an actor because there's look, not only do you get to start off playing, you get to play both like a Douglas Fairbanks, Errol Flynn, like Hollywood screen idol, but then you also get to play a sinister Nazi agent because that's who your character really is. Like that's just the most fun.
And he
Fucking spoilers, man.
You just said you saw it.
I said I think I might have seen it.
Oh,
it's-
it doesn't take away from your enjoyment of the movie.
The
It's not a big-
statute of limitations on this.
He has a mustache and a goatee. He's clearly evil.
He's the love rival from the beginning, so it's pretty obvious he's going to turn out to be
Yeah.
the villain.
Okay.
But it's a great movie. It's a ton of fun. It has a fantastic score. Just incredible.
It's Joe Johnson movie.
Yeah. As soon as they announced Joe Johnson for Captain America, the first one, I was like,
Yes.
I know it's going to be good because The Rocketeer is what got him that movie, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's a good thing that
It,
finally paid off.
captures that old classic Hollywood, kind of adventure serial vibe.
Because it wasn't Jurassic
so
Park 3.
well. Yeah.
So basically, he rips off Indiana Jones.
No, but it has its own
oh,
vibe,
no,
though.
it was-
Okay.
It has a great vibe.
I will watch it. We'll discuss it next
You
time
have to
you're on.
watch it. So, but I had never seen Spaceballs because again, we all have these weird little cultural black spots.
did
You've
you-
never seen Rocky, which is ridiculous.
I know I'm a bad person. Did you buy the Mel Brooks 6-pack Blu-ray thing when it was on sale a few weeks ago? Because that was a good buy.
No,
Let me go
what
and tell you.
No, what happened was I was talking to a friend of mine, and Spaceballs came up in conversation, and I said, "Oh, it's weird. I've never actually seen Spaceballs." And the literally the next day, there was an Amazon package on my doorstep, and I was like, I didn't order anything. And my friend had gifted it to me because it's only
Yeah.
$8 for the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'll watch it.
Okay.
It's terrible.
Okay, so we talked about this at lunch. We're going to retread a little bit.
I love Mel Brooks.
There are two kinds of Mel Brooks movies.
Yes.
There is the genre satire,
Yeah.
and then there's History of the World Part 1, which is not really any kind of satire. I mean, it's a satire of Western civilization, kind of
Yeah.
more than anything
Yeah.
else. And then there's the movie satire.
Right.
So Spaceballs is clearly referencing Star Trek, the motion picture.
Well, I thought about it after watching it. It occurred to me. So, look, Young Frankenstein,
God,
the
it's so good.
producers,
Also
in
good.
particular, Blazing Saddles,
Yep. Super good.
To Be or Not to Be. These are among
I've never seen To Be or Not to Be.
among my favorite movies. They're all just incredible movies.
Uh-huh.
Mel Brooks has made many, many, many great movies.
Very funny man.
History of the World, as you say, just goes on. His legacy to comedy is like one of the greatest of all time. Spaceballs, though, is awful.
Did you know that he was married to Mrs. Robinson?
He still is, Anne Bancroft.
I think she died.
She didn't die when she was in Curb Your Enthusiasm a couple of years ago because they were both in it.
That's true. Okay, carry on.
So here's my theory. So I thought Spaceballs was pretty bad, but having said that,
She died in 2005.
really,
That's what the internet says.
that doesn't make sense because she was in Curb Your Enthusiasm just a few years ago.
I'm just reading what's on the internet. I'm just fact checking.
Okay, so listen.
Go ahead. She was on Curb Your Enthusiasm 2004, before she died.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, now we know.
Okay.
So the point I wanted to make was
10 years ago.
I think the parodies and the satires that work, whether it be Mel Brooks or any other kind, are the ones that just take a broad genre and then do their own stuff within it. So like
setting.
So like Blazing Saddles is technically a parody of Western movies, but it's really there's a lot of other stuff going on there. It's its own movie. Airplane is a parody of the airplane disaster movies, but it's doing a lot. It's not relying on your knowledge of those movies to make jokes. It's just doing its own jokes in that setting.
Do you just think that's because you're super familiar with Star Wars though, and you're maybe not as familiar with classic westerns? Because it could be.
No, I'm very familiar with classic westerns.
Okay.
Maybe not as familiar as I am with Star Wars, but I'm very familiar with a lot of different movie genres.
I mean, I've watched a lot of westerns over the years.
There's a difference between just taking a genre as your template and putting an original movie in it, and just taking a very particular subset of movies like Star Wars and just using those having those direct references like
That's true.
Yoda and Pizza the Hut and all
the giant spaceship flying over top of the camera.
This is the new kind of parody that we have now, where it's like Scary Movie and Epic Movie and these terrible kind of new parodies that just rely on
Pop culture knowledge.
Your knowledge of those old original, because they're just making jokes specifically based on moments and characters and references from other existing movies.
If you had watched Scary Movie without watching I Know What You Did Last Summer and Scream, you'd have no fucking clue what's going on.
If I'd have watched Spaceballs when it
Scream.
first came out, as like a 14 or a 15-year-old kid, I probably would have found it hilarious.
I think Scream's a parody of the genre, not of a.
But Scream's not a comedy either. Scream's
pretty funny.
But Scream is kind of poking fun at the conventions of the genre, where Scary Movie is just going, oh, you saw The Ring, right? You saw I Know What You Did Last Summer. Let's just copy that and make it funny.
I mean, in reality, Scary Movie is just saying you saw the trailer for The Ring and you know what the gist is.
Right. So it's like, oh, did you recognize this, recognize this, recognize this? And all of the jokes are based on you having seen these other things because they're very specific references.
That's why I like Shrek.
All the things that are funny in Airplane are just funny jokes.
This is the problem with Aladdin. If you want to get down to it.
What's the problem with Aladdin?
The Robin Williams jokes are all topical.
I know, but if you subscribe to that internet theory that Aladdin is actually set in a distant post-apocalyptic future, all that stuff becomes valid again.
Hold on. There's an
This
internet
conversation
theory.
is so unnatural.
I don't subscribe to it.
Wait, they really think that Aladdin is
There
is some traction for an internet theory that Aladdin is actually set in a distant post-apocalyptic future.
Are these the same people that think all Pixar movies are set in the same universe?
Might be. That's a theory as well.
People are crazy.
And there's that theory that Frozen and Tangled are in the same universe.
I can buy that. That seems like that's actually true.
It's all fiction.
It's fun to pick. Yeah, but it's fun to pick apart this stuff.
Did you watch True Detective, Gary?
Yeah.
Have we talked about True Detective on this podcast?
I haven't because I haven't been here since it started.
Should we talk about the Lego movie before we talk about True Detective?
I enjoyed the Lego movie immensely.
I haven't seen
Partly
it.
because it was a movie that I saw in the theaters outside of my house.
Almost an empty theater.
Did you take your daughter?
Oh, when we walked in, literally, there was literally not a single person because we saw
my
it.
God.
Norm had already seen it, and I wanted to see it before it was out of theaters. Norm wanted to see it again, so we went. And because obviously it was a very successful movie, but it was late enough in its run that we went on a weeknight, and it was literally it was kind of interesting because every single seat in the theater was empty. So it was the question: where do you sit when you can sit anywhere?
Middle, like
We were
eighth
kind of
row
like
up.
Or upper middle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of upper middle.
Yeah. Non 3D.
Yeah, and of course non 3D.
I got both experiences. The
What-
empty theater.
did you see the
and
IMAX?
Packed. It wasn't an IMAX.
It wasn't an IMAX.
Empty theater and the packed only all kids.
I think it's a
Oh,
movie.
you went
that
Saturday morning or something?
I think it's a movie that I would have enjoyed seeing. Comedies are always more fun when you see them with a big audience.
Comedy and horror, yeah, definitely.
I still enjoyed it.
I saw. We made the mistake of going to see, I think, Finding Nemo in the theater. We thought, oh, we'll do our normal thing. We'll get up early on Saturday morning, go to like the 10 o'clock show, and there won't be anybody there.
Yeah.
Completely forgetting that it's a kids movie and that it's the fucking worst time ever to
I
go
did
see a
that
kids
with
movie.
I did that when Mulan came out. I went and saw a midnight show saying, well, like this will reduce the number of kids. No, it was still packed with
Midnight?
kids.
What kind of asshole takes their kid to a midnight showing?
Probably the same one that brought their 4-year-old to Scarface when I saw that recently at the theater.
There was
Is that one of those Fathom events?
Yeah, it was it was because because they had re-released it as a Blu-ray,
Yeah.
and they did a one night
One night
screening.
only.
But I'd never seen
It's only one night,
I'd
okay.
never seen Scarface on the big screen because I was too young
I
when it
can't
first
call the
came out.
babysitter. Can't
Great experience on a big screen.
We saw when we went to Django, there was somebody who had like an 8-year-old in there that left maybe 15 minutes in.
They're like, this is not what I. For some reason, this is not what I expected.
I saw the picture of Jamie Foxx in the blue suit, and I thought it was going to be something different.
Yeah.
Or South Park.
Yeah, exactly. Did you watch True Detective? Anything else on Lego? I don't even know.
You bought the song immediately after
I
watching the
bought
movie.
Everything Is Awesome on my phone even before I got to the parking lot and I listened to it on the way home because I liked it.
Is it just because it's a life affirming?
Yeah, it's just a
it's like
catchy-
Mr. Rogers telling you you're good enough and smart
It's a
enough.
catchy song. I liked it.
Okay.
But I liked the movie. I thought that, if you're going to... For me, it kind of shows that you can take anything that it's easy to be cynical about. Oh, it's just a toy commercial. They're just making a movie out of Lego. And actually make a good movie about it. If you think about your subject and execute it really well. I think they made a movie about the power of creativity and even has like a little bit, kind of non-conformity. It's almost kind of this Orwell... Everything's Awesome is a funny song, but the message behind it is obviously that's propaganda that's been piped into this society to keep them compliant
it's
and
their
conformist.
soma.
Yeah.
A lot of clever ideas in the movie.
A lot of clever ideas in the movie.
Did they kill all the old toys in the first 5 minutes of the movie, Transformers style?
No.
No. I did like...
Probably good.
The it's weird because somebody pointed out, rightly so, I guess, that the message of the movie, that again, encouraging creative play and build your own... Like the message of the movie, I guess, is like, in life, you shouldn't just follow the instructions, right? You should chart your own
Yeah, but
course.
Lego's all
and-
about following the instructions.
Right, so you go to a Lego store and they just want you to build the pre-built kit. So the product that Lego actually provides these days is not really the same as what they're telling you in the movie.
It's a
They're kind of
suggestion.
telling,
It's just a suggestion.
yeah. But I loved the creativity of it. I thought it was really well made and just very clever and well done.
When one of the minifigs got angry about something, did their head spin around, so you saw the alternate face on the
Yes,
back?
in fact, that did happen.
That's good. That makes me happy.
If there's like a Lego trope that you can think of, they probably found a way to get it
Jammed
into
it in
the
there.
movie. Yeah.
Speaking of Transformers, we haven't talked about the upcoming.
Oh, we're gonna go, right?
Yes.
Fourth storied entry in the
Yeah.
Transformers
We got to keep
franchise.
the streak going.
Age of Extinction.
Dinosaurs.
So every year we go, not every year, but every Transformers movie we go
To the
right?
midnight
and
IMAX.
and we end up coming out
Wondering why
deflated
we
or
wasted
unhappy
our
in some
time
way.
and money.
But then we're
Yes.
right back again. Like why how does
It's
this
like
keep
Charlie
happening?
Brown in the football. It's because every time you say, "Hey, we're going to go," right, and then we all say, "Yeah, okay, yeah, I guess I'll go."
I
Why
mean, maybe
not?
this one will be good. It has the Dinobot. The thing is, I didn't grow up...
Do you even know what a fucking Dinobot
No,
is?
because I didn't grow... This is a talk about cultural blind spots. I didn't play with Transformers as a kid, and I never watched the TV show. So when people go, oh, that's not what Star Sonic, or whatever his name is supposed to look...
Starscream.
Starscream. That's not what he's supposed to sound like. I don't care, because I have no frame of reference.
be
I'm
no
just watching
Megatron.
it, and taking it as it is.
So it's basically just robot wrestling for you.
Yeah, and that's good enough for me. Now they're riding dinosaurs. I'm in.
They're shooting guns with two hands.
Yeah, no more
with
Shire.
parachutes.
I mean, there's a lot of
No more
positives
Shia is
here.
a strong
A
positive.
lot of positives.
Yeah.
Man, that trailer has so much America in it.
Yeah,
American
it's
flags
by
in
far the
every
most
scene.
American thing I've seen in a long time.
Nobody does America like Michael Bay.
Michael Bay is great at America.
I watched Bad Boys 2 for the first time since I saw you.
I
since
didn't
we
like-
were
I
on
didn't
the
care for
podcast
Bad
last
Boys
time.
2.
You haven't seen Bad Boys 2.
I didn't
Slut.
care for it personally.
Hot Fuzz joke.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I like the original Bad Boys.
I like both of them. I thought they were okay. The second one was a little bit over the
I
top.
saw Armageddon again recently, and that still holds up for me. I like
Holds up.
Armageddon.
Holds up.
That movie is
Cry
great
every
and
time.
terrible. When Bruce Willis dies? Spoilers.
Look, Michael Bay could make 500 bad movies in a row, and he would still be in the black with me just because of The Rock.
Yeah, like Yeah, I
That's-
actually agree with that
It's
wholeheartedly.
a truly great
Like,
action movie. And
just
even
to
people
be
that
clear,
despise Michael Bay have to concede that one.
Transformers 2 is one of the worst movies I've ever seen of all time. Not only was it bad, but it was incomprehensible and had major both thematic and just continuity problems.
I had some issues with it.
that were real dumb. But I think The Rock is so good that it
Telling
actually
you,
outweighs
it
that.
cancels it all out.
Yeah. It's positive.
Carla was the prom queen.
That's right.
She was the pro.
a great-
It's also one of Nick Cage's finest roles. I mean,
Man.
it's so everybody's so good.
It's a good movie.
Who's the other FBI guy? Who's like the handler guy? It's Ed Harris is the bad guy, and
Yeah.
but who's the
Big stash dude.
yeah.
What's
He's-
his name? Oh god, it's gonna kill me now. It's William something.
H Macy?
Nope.
No, the guy with the moustache.
He's in a bunch of other shit too.
Oh, it's gonna annoy me now. Maybe it's not William.
I'm looking it up.
But I do need to know.
I'm working on it.
He's
when
the-
I type in The Rock, it takes me to Dwayne The Rock.
He's the guy when
Johnson's
Sean
page.
Connery says, Solzhenitsyn, he goes, oh yeah, didn't he play for the Red Wings? So he's like the dumb FBI agent.
It's not John Spencer. He's the FBI
No,
director.
he's the head of
William
the FBI.
Forsythe.
William Forsythe, that's right. I knew it was a William of some kind. I always get him mixed up with William Fichtner and William Devane and all those other great character
William
actors.
Fichtner
Yes.
is a great character actor.
Yes. Finally, on our list of topics, we have True Detective.
Why are we talking about True Detective weeks
Beyond-
after it ended?
Because we have yet to talk about True Detective. You're
What,
the
you mean
only
as a-
person
as a trio?
You're the only person on our guest list that has watched all of True Detective.
I watched all of it.
Beyond this point, there will be True Detective spoilers.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen it and you're planning to like watch it when it comes out on DVD or whatever, you should
you've
tune
wasted.
out now.
You made poor choices, but yes, tune out now.
If you haven't been able to borrow someone's HBO Go password,
Yes.
apparently that's quite a popular thing to do.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Highly recommended.
Yeah.
Do you okay?
I don't have anything more to say about it other than I liked it.
I liked it. I do think in the last two episodes it faltered a little bit.
Fifth
Every
episode
mystery-
peaked hard.
The first
Every
5
mystery,
episodes were so good. I was starting to worry. There's
Yeah.
no way they can stick this landing, and I don't think they entirely did. But I wasn't unsatisfied.
The resolution of every mystery is less satisfying than the mystery itself.
Yeah, and many people made the point that it wasn't about the mystery. It was
It
about
wasn't. It was
those
about-
two characters,
yes.
and I
Yeah.
think that they mostly finished that out
Yes.
pretty well.
Gave
Yep.
a pretty good arc to those guys.
Yeah, I liked it a lot, and I'm very interested to see what they do with the second season because it has to start. They have to completely.
It's like
reinvent it.
contractually obligated that they completely reinvent it, right?
Well, I mean,
That was what HBO was sold on.
my understanding is that the plan creatively was always that it would be a different story, different set of characters each time.
Speaking of HBO, I read a really. There was an interview with George R.R. Martin about the next book in the Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, it's
Series.
supposed to be 2 more, right? And then it's done.
I mean,
He's
yeah,
working on the 6th. Number 7 is the last one.
yeah.
So there's a fear that the TV show could catch up with
The
him.
TV
that
show
right?
is undoubtedly going to catch up
They're
with him.
making Scott Pilgrim it. TV show can be its own thing and not follow the books.
No, but I think even the TV guys have said like they expect this to have like 7 or 8 years and then they'll close it out.
Well, but the thing that came out of that George R.R. Martin interview is that HBO doesn't pick up the next season of a series until after the current one is on air.
So HBO could at one point say, we don't want to continue to do this.
Yeah,
Too
they don't
expensive.
have a 7-year deal.
Well, usually what happens is they wait for the premiere. Like if memory serves, when season 3 started, I think after they had the ratings for the first episode, they were like renew. They know
They can
that
project.
They just want to know that people are still in, that they didn't disappear like in the off season or something. Game of Thrones is going to run its full course. It's not going to get canceled.
They'd have to fuck up really, really bad.
What's the
Yes.
longest running show on HBO?
Maybe The Sopranos
Real
or
Sex?
Sex in the City.
I don't think Sex and the City was more than 7 years.
Sex and the City was like 5 seasons.
I don't know. Maybe The Sopranos.
Sopranos was 5 seasons, I think.
Oz ran for 6 or 7.
Oz ran for a long time.
We're probably missing a really obvious one.
Larry Sanders.
The Wire ran for what, 5?
Yep.
How long did Larry Sanders
Larry
run?
Sanders, I think, was 4 or 5.
What's the-
And that'd be impressive.
But HBO isn't about running shows for a long time. They have a hit
Exactly.
and they let it run its course, and then they find the next hit.
Exactly. I mean, given the pacing of the series, it could run 10 years.
Technically, it's probably something like Real Sports or something like that, but not as a scripted
As a-
show. I don't know what it would be. I read an interesting thing because I got to a point where I had read a lot of the Game of Thrones books, and then I got to a point where I wanted to stop reading and just because I was tired of like watching the show and knowing what was going to happen next because I'd read the books, and I'd rather just watch the show and not know. So I stopped reading the books, and so I guess there was something about the later books that I didn't know, that like 2 of the most recent books actually happened simultaneously.
Yeah, 4 and 5. Book 4 and book 5.
Or both set in the exact same space of
same
span
time
of time.
period.
How does that? That's interesting. I don't know how that works.
One basically handles events in Westeros, and one handles events across the sea with Daenerys and Arya and all the other characters.
Okay, so what they've basically said, I
I mean,
guess.
that's not. I think that I apologize. I
What?
probably fucked that up. Huh?
Sounds like there were spoilers there.
Yeah,
but-
there may have been a bit of a spoiler in there. But so I guess I think what they're going to, for the TV version, is they're going to take those 2 books and kind of intertwine them and do it all as one thing.
So that makes sense.
Or spread those 2 books over as 2 seasons.
They'll probably do it,
but-
over, but then split
Yeah.
it in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the complaint with the books was that if you liked one of the characters that wasn't in one of those books, you read a whole book that wasn't about a character that you were into. So if they intertwine them better, I mean, it's so fucking confusing though, because there's so many characters that you eventually just lose, even when you're reading the books and can kind of flip back to see who's who. It's a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've done a good job on the TV show of keeping it like they're just keeping it under capacity. Like however many story threads you can like remember in your head, they haven't gone over that number, but they are pretty close to it.
Well, the TV show, I think they do a much better job than the books.
Okay.
Because some of the people in the TV show have just been not excised, but they're not first person. Like in the book, each chapter is told from a different person's perspective.
Right.
And there are characters who are first person characters who are not, and there are just too many first person characters in the books, I think. That's my main complaint. That and all the magic bullshit. So I guess that's it. Anything else? We good?
I think we're good.
That was
a long show.
Yeah. Well, a lot to talk about.
2 hours and 45 minutes.
Oh my goodness gracious.
We'll be back next week with more. This is only a test. Thanks for coming by, Gary. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. I was glad to be back. I hope we get to do it again.
250 episodes.
Yeah, it's a big milestone.
Hey, where's the cake, Norm? You said you were getting a cake.
Is there a cake?
I didn't say I was getting cake.
You totally said, "Hey, I'll bring cake."
Nope.
Donuts?
No cake. You had donuts
You had donuts
yesterday.
at home.
But
What kind of donuts? Did you get big
today's
box
a new
donuts
day.
or Krispy Kremes?
I just got Safeway 2 for $1. I got the chocolate.
Oh, that's
the chocolate old fashioned cake ones. I really like those.
I do like an old fashioned.
Oh yeah.
But the Safeway donuts are the settling of donuts.
Oh, I'm happy to settle at this age.
Okay. You're just happy to have
Just donuts.
any donut's still better than no donut.
Yeah, I do. I mean, don't get me wrong. Krispy Kreme is a good donut, but
Can we talk? Should we have talked about your diet adventure?
No, let's not.
Okay, we'll do it next time. Bye, guys.